Well, here we are, yet again. We've done it. Bing, 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 bing. Hope you're all doing well out there in TikTok land. Hope you're doing well. Doom to Bloom, first in the door. Congratulations, you did it. You win. Oh, I'm actually tired, man. I'm tired. I flipped my apartment. So if you're looking at it from the YouTube perspective, you'll notice that things look a little bit different behind me. The structure of what I'm going on looks a little bit different. And that's because I literally flipped my whole space. Before I had it all set up so that there was the problem was that I had cords running between the entrance of between the wall and the couch, so my dog would come over and knock things over and be a big problem. Now it's all cleared up. Everything's great. Everything's fine. It's gonna be a beautiful thing, but I'm tired because I've been doing chores all day. Yeah, we only care about Comrade Milo. Right now, he's out of the apartment because I've been spraying insecticide in here. The people next door to me moved out, and all of the bugs that were in their space decided to move into my space. So I've been blowing them away with insecticide, which means that he's out of the apartment. And I've been cleaning away, trying to get this place not so full of annoying bugs. Isn't that great? Isn't it nice? Isn't that nice when you got bugs all up in your place? My friends keep telling me just get an exterminator, and I'm like, I think it's gonna be temporary. So I think it's under control. But boy, howdy, I've been moving and grooving all today. So that I got just it's nice to take a moment when the system of capital pulls off for just a little tiny, just like a little bit. It's nice to take a moment, clean up your own space, clean up your own apartment, clean up your own act, right? Not like I was in a relationship for 10 years and it was easier when I was in that relationship because there was always like I could do a little bit and then she could do a little bit and then I could do a little bit and then she could do a little bit, and we were always kind of like working with one another in a partnership. But as a single person, it's much more difficult. It's much more difficult to stay on top of like all of the chores and all of the stuff. JP adjacent, sure. Look, this is the reason why people paid attention. Good to see you, looking to see. Good to see you, Anemone. Good to see you, grinning. The the reason why people gave Peterson a rope, like the reason why they gave him enough credit was because he was right about that. Like that is true. Like clean up your apartment, clean up your room, for sure, absolutely. But eventually, you need to step outside your room. Eventually, you need to step outside of your home. Like eventually, you need to actually take a look at what's going on in the society and actually understand what's happening, right? Like Peterson basically like the only reason why the only thing valuable he actually ever said was clean up your room is because that's where he basically stays, right? He doesn't actually go anywhere or know anything about the society he's attempting to critique, right? Like his critique of society is as vague as it gets, and frankly could use with a dose of historical materialism and Marxism, frankly. Like, he doesn't really understand the dynamic between the worker, the proletariat, and the bourgeoisie. He doesn't really understand what's actually being said to him, and he's trying to critique it without actually understanding the subject matter. And you can see that very clearly laid out in his debate, if you want to call it a debate, between him and Zizek, where Zizek just kind of, like, Zizek didn't really, like, roll him over. Zizek just walked up to him like a big teddy bear and just kind of gave him, like, a big hug and was just like, okay, comrade. Kind of give him a good pat on the back. And, like, that was it. Like, Peterson didn't know what he was talking about, and it was really, really obvious. Doom to Bloom, do you have any personal goals for the new year? My personal goals for... I do actually have personal goals for the new year. Personal goal, I want to commit more time to this Unreal Engine project. I want to actually sit down and actually begin plugging away with it. Tomorrow is the day. I've got a day. I have 3 days off in a row. Yesterday was about just personal recovery because capitalism is hard. And then today was about cleaning my apartment, right? Getting all sorted out. And then tomorrow I'm actually going to dedicate a bit of time to doing that project. My father graciously bought me a keyboard, and I like the idea of creating like a video game in this Unreal Engine thing that blends, that's just absolutely chock full of sound and music that comes out of the game world itself. It is actually my number one critique of video games generally, is that there's usually like and even video games I really love, Legend of Zelda, Elden Ring, that there's this that music is just sort of on top of the game, right? It comes from nowhere. You're just supposed to accept that you're going da 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 da, and you're just, music is there. But when you think about it, it doesn't make any sense at all. And so I would like to create something where people play music, and music and sound comes out of the game world, and that you as a character will be doing something, and then another character will come by, and suddenly the scene will be full of the music that they play, that they do, and you just enjoy it as it comes by. Or you'll come into a scene, like a meadow or something, and there'll be a character playing a flute. Some video games have done this, like Hades did this really, really well, where you would come into a scene and there would be a character playing, singing a song. I found it to be absolutely, like, it's the most effective thing that happens in video games, is when music actually comes out of the game world itself. And so that's sort of my goal. That's my goal. Or I shouldn't say goal, but just something I'd like to do. Because, you know, I'm turning 40. I'm turning 40 this next year. And when I turn 40, it does raise really interesting questions, you know, because everything's getting more difficult, right? It's getting more physically difficult to do things. You gotta rest longer. You gotta, it's harder to do most tasks. Most tasks take a little bit more time. You feel your bones more, you're in pain more. And so it begins raising interesting questions of like, well, what's the point of being alive? And what's the point of doing anything? What's the point of being here? And so I want to focus on the things that I think I care about, and I want to create something or dabble with the idea of creating something, even though my society generally denigrates that sort of thing. So it's what I care about, and that's what I'm going to focus on. Thanks for the question, Doom. Who are we talking about here, grinning? We're talking about... Oh, you're talking about Jordan Peterson. He's been a mess lately, if the memes are to be believed. Honestly, dude, I just think that, like, he's just full huckster at this point. Like, I think he knows who's paying his bills, and he's just going to say whatever he needs to say to get his bills paid. That's it. Like, he's like all these hucksters. He's like Candace Owens. He's like all of them, right? That, like, oh, there are billionaires financing me, and this is what the billionaires want us to say? Okay. It's as simple as that. Like, I don't think there's anything credible left there. Good evening to you, Radio Halifax. Might enjoy Stardew Valley. Stardew Valley's a great game, yeah. I think the game that I have in my mind is a game, like, it's more... Like, I want to make a wizard. That's what I want. If I could make a game where you are a wizard using magic, and, like, you start the game in a very tight, controlled sort of a space, so it ends up being an escape room, really, and you have to figure out the mechanics of the game to get out of the room, and then once you're out of that space, then it's a larger escape room, but you get access to more mechanics until finally you do get access to the larger game world. And the thing that always not drives me crazy, but the thing I always notice about wizards in video games is that they're essentially just skinned archers. Like, you're throwing a fireball, you're throwing a lightning bolt, you're throwing some kind of projectile, which isn't really much different from just being an archer. And all of the, like, inherent subtlety and the control aspects of what a wizard could actually do just never make it in. And I understand why they do that, because if they did do that, everyone would recognize very quickly that, yeah, being a wizard's the best thing. Like, be a wizard. Like, for real, be a wizard. And I want to make a game where the idea of, like, I'll pick up a stick and hit him with a stick is just dumb. It's just a dumb thing to even think. That you obviously are a wizard and you're going to be a wizard. And I want to create a game where, like, the character is actually very fragile. That you send support units into the world. That your interaction with the world is not you directly as the avatar, but you sending, like, unseen spirits or skeletons or enthralling people and interacting with the game world that way. So it's a lot more indirect, and there's a lot more subtlety there. That's what I'm more interested in creating. A much more deliberate experience. Command Genius, how you doing, bud? I asked you yesterday, do you prefer the Communist Party of Canada or the Communist Party of Canadian Marxist-Leninists? I mean, neither of them seem capable of making an impact. Really. Like, neither of them seem... They both seem like a depleted force. They both seem tired. Like, I don't see... I do think that the Communist Party of Canada recently has had something of a resurgence and has tried to somewhat get more... But anytime I try to contact these organizations and be like, hey, can I talk to you? Like, what's the thing? I never hear from them. Like, I never hear from them. So, as far as I'm concerned, they're sort of tired forces, and I wouldn't be too surprised to find out that they've just been completely co-opted. Yeah, Stardew Valley's a nice, relaxing game, a farming simulator, of course. And of course, like most of these farming simulators, begins with the idea that you just get free land, right? Like, that's the beginning of all of these simulators and these farming things. You just start the game with free land. Like, congratulations, you have land that your dad gave you or whatever. Tubists must be OP. Keep it real. I don't know what you're talking about. Communist Party of Canada seems to be more active here in Halifax. That's good. That's good. Fighting violinists should be for level 2. Level 1 will be fighting theater majors. What the hell are you talking about, Grinning? JP gonna have a stroke. I mean, the guy already went into a coma. The dude who made Stardew Valley is making a new game, Haunted Chocolatier. It's more magical. Wizard, is that like trickle down? Grinning, what the hell are you talking about in the commentary today, dude? I have no idea what the hell you're talking about. Hope you guys are all doing well in the comments. I don't really respond to the TikTok comments, guys. If you wanna actually have a conversation with me, right? Links in the description. Come to YouTube. I don't really comment to the TikTok and you can see why, right? You can see why. I glance over. Why do I want communism? Because I'd like a system that works. That's why. Like, I'd like something that actually functions and actually helps the mass of the people. That's what I would like, right? Like, our current system is obviously not working. Like, I've got just today's links. Canadian Army feeling the squeeze of more demands, fewer soldiers. Like, yeah, fewer soldiers. No one wants to be involved in an imperial death machine anymore. And it's getting obvious that that's what it is, right? That we're literally just gallivanting around the world, blowing up nations, destroying everybody for nothing. Like, for nothing. Like, we're not even getting resources out of these places anymore. We're just literally destroying them for our own entertainment, it seems. True scale of homelessness in Canada being undercounted, right? Like, the counting, 250,000 people experience homelessness in any given year. Like, not a success, right? Not a success. Like, straight up, we can be really clear about this. Like, not a successful nation, not a successful, like, and the embarrassing part is that for every homeless person, there's like 5 empty houses, and we can't seem to square this circle. We can't seem to just be like 1 + 1 = 2. Like, this is a problem that solves itself, and I'm more or less of the idea that the very concept of a housing market is just the stupidest shit I've ever heard of in my life. that it's completely fine for rich psychopaths to withhold housing from other people so that they can make money from the misery they spread doing so. Like, absolutely fucking not. Absolutely fucking not. And it just seems like we're a brain dead people who seem to think that that's completely fine. That the rich people who get to the top of the chain because they're fucking psychos they deserved it. And if those poor people want to get those houses, they need to work extra hard. They just got to work extra hard. And then you find out that the rich people have the house because their daddy gave it to them. Like, it's just fucking dumb shit. Like, we're just a dumb shit people. And I'm over it. Like, I'm over sugarcoating it. I'm over trying to pretend like there's a both sides argument. I'm over it. We're just stupid. Like, we're just a dumb fuck people. And the people who are still simping for capitalism are just dumb fucks and psychopaths at this point. Like, and there doesn't seem to be an in-between. Like, you're either just some moron, like, you're either like some guy who played video games in his parents' basement and got a whole bunch of money doing that, and now you think capitalism's the greatest, and so you defend it, right? Or you're just like literally a psychopath who thinks that spreading suffering is good. So, yeah, there was never a both sides argument. The idea of homelessness should enrage people. Absolutely. What do you think the contrast between Chinese TikTok and international TikTok? I have never interacted with Chinese TikTok, so I can't actually tell you. I don't have any first hand. Yuri, good to see you, bud. I hope you're here to be beautiful. I've never seen Chinese TikTok firsthand. I only hear about it through rumor and conjecture, so I don't know anything about it. I will say this, is that the idea that the Chinese are under control of TikTok and they're trying to manipulate the public through these TikTok, it's dumb. That's dumb. Like, the Americans have control of TikTok. That all of that information goes through servers. There's a company called Oracle, and all that information goes through American servers. I think they're based in California. And so the idea that, like, they're manipulating the algorithm to try and make us dumber, like, that's stupid. Like, obviously, the American companies are in control of the algorithm. Obviously, they're in control of that kind of thing. So, basically, I'm more or less of the opinion that if you're interacting with Chinese TikTok and you're like, oh, wow, there's more, like, information and there's more informative videos and all that, it's because the people are smarter. That's all. That's all. And we know the Chinese people are smarter. Obviously, they're smarter than us by a lot. Like, obviously, like, it doesn't take a fucking genius or a PhD somebody to do this, right? Like, from what I've heard, Chinese TikTok encourages working and shows less mind-numbing content. Yeah, I mean, but is that because Chinese TikTok, like, the nature of the algorithm is that it's going to show you the things that you are interested in seeing. And so is it that the Chinese are trying to push that, or is it that the Chinese people are more interested in that? That Chinese people are less likely to tune out because they actually live in a society that's attempting to enable them, right? Like, if you're living in a society that's actually uplifting you, attempting to lift you out of poverty, attempting to create a situation where you can live in the world peacefully, be successful in the endeavors that you try to do, where you have more leisure time, you retire earlier, things are not so difficult for you, then you're going to interact with these systems not in order to be like, put me out of my misery, but instead you're going to be like, oh, what is going on? And oh my goodness, look at this interesting thing that I can learn. And I have mental space and energy to actually commit to that sort of thing. Whereas here in the West, like, capitalism grinds you away. You know that all of your labor goes towards Jeffrey Epstein's pedophile island, and life is a fucking shithole. Your institutions pay no attention to you. It's a mental grind just to get out of bed and make it back to bed. And so when you look at TikTok, you're like, please, just girls dancing. That's literally what's going on. So is it that the Chinese are pushing it, or is it that we've created a system by which people are fucking exhausted out of their fucking brains? And so when we interact with TikTok, we're literally just begging for a kind of mental death. Whereas when they interact with TikTok, they're like, oh, what is this thing that we can interact with, and how can it be pleasurable and do this kind of thing in our life? right? So which one? Because I don't buy this thing that says the Chinese are pushing this thing on us because we control the servers. Like if the Chinese are pushing the thing on us, then we're letting them. So it's that's what's going on. The West is the epitome of anti-intellectualism. Absolutely, yeah. Chinese TikTok is actually not the worst. People in the West say it's bad because they're forcing educational videos on children. Yeah, man, like that's like saying like public broadcasting, Sesame Street is a communist tool of the devil. Like, yeah, less cringe. But like things like TikTok and things like the internet itself are actually a reflection of the culture, right? That it's not that these are the things that are being pushed on us, although that happens to a certain degree. But it wouldn't matter how hard they pushed if the society wasn't prepped for it, right? Like, it doesn't matter how hard they push Jordan Peterson on us if we're all over him, right? If we're all just like, okay, whatever, daddy, like whatever you say, Uncle Peterson, right? Get like, okay, boomer, like, okay, like, and if we just stopped paying attention, then they would stop pushing it. But we've been primed for it, and we're there for it. Yuri says, do you plan a revolt against the Canadian government using physical violence or protest peacefully? Peaceful protest is our only path. If you attempted violent protest, we don't have the numbers for physical violent. Like we don't have a revolution. We're not going to have a revolution in this country. That's just not what's going to happen. That it's more likely that we're going to face a period of balkanization first. And that balkanization is going to happen throughout the United States and Canada for sure. And then after a period of balkanization, you might have localized revolution, you might have localized political revolts, you might have localized sort of things. But, and people might begin attempting to do it, which might lead to further balkanization. But it's not like Canada is suddenly going to flip, or the United States is suddenly going to flip, and there's going to be a big, like, now we're communists. Like, that's not going to happen. And to me, the most likely trajectory for the United States and Canada is a period of balkanization, which historically is just the most likely thing to happen. Like, our entire system was created by kings and queens and slaveholders. Like, and it was designed to control the masses so that they would pay fealty to the power structure, right? It's untenable. So either we actually get our brains out of the gutter and actually start to redraw our constitution, which isn't going to happen because we're too stupid and disorganized, or the inevitable result is that we just balkanize. Like, and balkanization is like, it's really clear how it's going to happen, right? Like, people in Texas are going to look at their paycheck and go, what is this line? Why am I losing 20 to 30 to 40 to 50% of my pay to this line? What does that pay for? And when you actually look at it, it pays for nothing. Like, literally nothing. It's just handing money over to weapons contractors to go bomb children overseas. It's literally what it is. And so people are going to be like, I don't want to pay that. And so the only way to not pay that is to declare independence against the federal government. Simultaneously, right, there's going to be a big contraction that's coming at the highest possible level where they're going to try to raise taxes on the rich. And so you're going to have a bunch of these rich losers, right, like your Musks and your Bezoses and all this, fleeing to independent states like Texas and allying with the poor in order to foment an independence movement so they don't need to pay any taxes. They get to keep their money, right? So it's this moment where the interests of the poor and the rich will align within concentrated states, and there'll be a balkanization movement. Like, independence movements are already on the ballot in Texas, California. The support for independence movements are as high as 30 to 40% state by state. And that's Democrat and Republican, by the way. So I don't see a path for the United States. And the thing that really convinces me that really convinces me that we are going to go through a period of balkanization is that not only are we not committed to any, like zero, there are absolutely no unifying projects. Like, we're not committing to any unifying projects. But also, we are dismantling the unifying projects that we erected in the past. Like, the healthcare system throughout Canada is currently being... balkanization is when provinces or states peel off. When the federated body breaks apart. That's balkanization. It's what the United States wants to do to China. It's what NATO was created to do to the Soviet Union and succeeded. The Soviet Union balkanized. So balkanization is when federated bodies break apart. And it's going to happen to the United States and Canada because we have no unifying projects. We're actively dismantling the unifying projects that we actually have. And it will become in the interests of both the rich and the poor to split off sections of the larger federated body in order to protect themselves from the federal government, essentially. Right? The rich don't want to pay taxes, and the poor don't want to pay taxes. And so both of them will basically just say, fuck you to the federal government. And places like California, Texas, Seattle, Maine, right? Like a lot of places have a lot of interest in doing that. And that's what I think is going to happen first. That it is not going to be the case. Like, I'm not delusional. I'm not sitting here saying that, like, we're going to have a communist revolution and then the whole thing is going to be communist and we're going to be communist and put forward the communist. Like, that's not a thing. Why not run for office? Why invest energy in a system that's actually dead? Like, the system is actually dead. Like, I think that it makes sense to run for office at, like, a municipal level in, like, small scale ways. And create small localized power. But, like, let's not bullshit ourselves. Like, they arrest communists. Like, you don't get to just be a communist. Like, they do everything they can to disrupt communists in this system. Like, it's straightforward. Like, they'll kick in your door. Like, this happened to a trans rights activist here in London, where they, like, kicked in her door, doxed her, and now she fled overseas. Like, they 100% do this. So, Apple, offshore tax havens paid for Daphne and Caruana Galizia's execution. She wrote the Panama Papers. Yeah. Yeah, in Latin America, they just kill communists. How about a push for ranked choice voting? Like, none of that's going to happen, Travis. Like, the American system was literally created by slavers and is explicitly designed on purpose in the document. You can read the thing. It's explicitly stated to keep power within the wealth of the nation. That it's designed to ensure that the rich will always be in charge, and under the understanding that the rich will never vote their own wealth away, and they'll never allow a system to come up to actually be egalitarian in that way, right? That's why it will fail and balkanize. Like the union will not stay together. Segatari, can Canada become a fully communist nation? I mean, maybe eventually. Maybe 3 generations from now, 2 generations from now. But we're going to go through a very serious period of breaking apart, humiliation. Like, we no longer have an industrial base any longer. Like, we literally gave it to the Chinese and the Indians. Like, we as a nation, like as a people, are going to become a backwater place. Like, it's just in the stars at this point. And I don't think it's possible to stop. Like, I shouldn't say it's not possible to stop, but we literally would need, like, a leader to show up to be like, we are going to stop this. And that's not happening. That's not happening. We're stuck with losers like Pierre Poilievre and Trudeau. We're stuck with just dim-witted idiots. Or just careerists like Singh, who, like, if he were to get into power, he'd, like, raise taxes on the rich by 0.5% or whatever, and then give them some other benefit somewhere else to pretend like he's a progressive. Like, it's, the whole thing is in a major decline. And it's going to get really obvious really fast. Like, really, really soon. It's going to get really, really obvious that the system of capital is in a major, major, major decline, and that we are not equipped or not prepared to handle that. And the entire rest of the world is eventually going to look at us and go, what is it that you do? What is it that you create? What is it that you think, like, we don't want anything that you're doing. We don't want your war. We don't want your godless, endless wars. We don't want any of the death that you're spreading throughout. You don't make anything. You don't manufacture anything. You don't create anything. And more, your art is just looking like fascist propaganda, like, which we're not interested in. And we, the vast majority of the global population, don't really think that you have anything to offer. And so we're going to become like this backwater feudal fiefdom, basically. And I suspect that we'll just collapse into internal turmoil while China and India and Russia and the rest of the world negotiate how to actually create a stable society. Like, it just seems to me that the future of North America and the future of capitalism generally is one of internal conflict. And knowing us, will give it some kind of name like World War III or like this is a global conflict, while the rest of the world is basically just drawing a line, sequestering us, and saying, okay, white people, you have yet another internal conflict. We're going to try to actually build something that's reasonable and stable. Yeah, England's royal family has probably always regarded Canada as a feudal backwater. Yeah. Like, and that's more or less my point, is that our system of government, like our democracy, if you want to call it that, isn't designed to respond to the people. It never was. It was always designed to spread the edicts of the king. And then once we declared our independence, that power just went into the prime minister's office. And so the whole thing is designed, and always has been designed, to defer to the rich, to defer to the powerful. It's never been designed to actually respond to the needs of the public. And the only time that changed, the only time that has changed, is when the people go and surround the halls of power. It's literally the only time it's gone in our favor, right? But so until we actually do that, and radio, I do have my flag. It's up. It's just off panel. It's just off screen. I'm gonna move it later. Thanks, dude. How is a communist nation supposed to deal with human greed? Through institutional power. That's the way to do it. That you build an institution that acknowledges that such a thing exists and vets people. Like, our system, like, literally our system is this stupid. Just get a bunch of rubes to vote for you and you get to write the law. Like, that's the dumbest shit I've ever heard in my life. That you need a system, you need an institution that actually vets people. That actually says, like, congratulations, you won an election. Now, are you competent? Are you capable? Do you actually give a shit? Or are you just here to steal as much money as you possibly can and enrich yourself? In which case, we'll just put you in the corner and forget about you. Like, we don't have any vetting system. Our vetting system explicitly rewards the most incompetent, psychopathic people in the room. Like, it's what we do. Oh yeah, crypto. Fuck you, crypto. Yeah, do you know what Chat GTP is? Yep. Lascaris was very close, and if May leaves the party, he said he'd reconsider. I blame the left NDP supporters for not going to vote for him. There are so many ways there. What the heck were they thinking? Like, I just don't think it's going to be, like, people seem to think that there's going to be an electoral solution to this. And I'm here to kill that hope. There is no electoral solution. They will kill people if they have to. Like, I don't know why we think we're suddenly going to elect like a socialist and a communist, and the capitalists will just be like, oh, well, the election went that way, so I guess we're going to do what they say now. Hey, yuck. They'll shoot people, dude. They're fine with that. They don't care. Did you hear about the city that set aside 20% of its budget and allowed people to decide what to do with it? I mean, this is more or less what I'm talking about, is that especially throughout the United States, it'll be individual cities and it'll be individual states, individual municipalities, really, that come to terms with what's happening and make laws for themselves. And eventually they'll just look at the federal government and see it as nothing but a burden and be done with it. And I take a look at California, and like California wants to move forward and be a progressive progressive economy. It wants to move into a green energy economy. It wants to do these things. And the federal government is nothing but a weight around its neck while it's attempting to do it. And it's just a matter of time until like someone like DeSantis gets in, or someone like Trump gets in again, and they just keep putting on the tariffs, and they keep putting on all of the things, and California eventually just goes, why are we tolerating this? Like, what are we gaining from this? And it's just going to go. Laughing Man, good to see you. I'm so angry at the system lately. I just ended up watching music streamers on Twitch and pretending the world is fake. Yeah, well, much of the world is fake. Like, much of the world is fake. Like, we've created this, like, fake culture and this fake idea and this fake concept, right? Like, I do have a Discord, by the way. If you donate $1 to my Patreon, right? I've got a Patreon in the description. If you donate even $1, it gets you into the Discord. So please consider donating. Like, hit the like button, hit the share button, hit the diamonds, hit the things, do all the stuff. If you haven't hit the like, please hit the like, right? Oh, we got a real winner in the TikTok. This dude is a result of zero ambition and blaming his failures on others. Yeah, because there's no such thing as systems, dude. Like, if you're dumb, you can say what you like, right? Like, if you don't know anything about the culture you live in, if you're illiterate and stupid, you can basically just say what you like, right? And you do all the time, obviously, right there. So maybe go read a book, bud. Maybe go read a book. I mean, I love it when people say this kind of thing, because you don't know anything about me. Like, you don't know anything about me. So the first statement that you've made about me is based exclusively on illiteracy and stupidity, right? It's the stupidest thing to say to somebody, because you're just proving to me that you're dumb. Like, that's it. Like, you're just a dumb, stupid person. You don't know anything about anything, least of all me, right? And yet you feel like you get to judge my entire life based on what? Based on what? So you're just a stupid person. Move on. Yeah, no one cares what you own, dude. You're a slaver. Get the fuck out of here. Read a book. Stop exploiting other people for your own gain and pretending like that makes you good. Yeah, I mean, of course my opinion's changed a bit. I mean, one of the things, like, I've started to kill just hope. Like, I'm just killing hope. Like, things are not going to improve. Like, things are not going to improve. And I'm past the despair point. Like, I'm no longer sitting here being like, things will never improve. I'm literally just sitting here being like, no, that's what it is. That the system of capital is not interested in reforming itself. The ruling class is incompetent. Like, it's incompetent. Like, just like Zuckerberg, Musk, Bezos, right, Gates, the rest of them, like, they're selfish children, many of them child rapists and pedophiles. Like, they're not interested in building a stable society. That's never what they were interested in doing. And the system is not actually interested in vetting a ruling class that's interested in doing that. So the concept that there's suddenly going to be a come to Jesus moment, and that we're suddenly going to have a moment where, oh, the ruling class does this and all this kind of stuff. And then conversely, it just looks like the people are willing to bend over and take it. Like, where's the big protest movements? Like, the glimmer, the shred of the glimmer of hope that exists is that there's some kind of unionization effort happening a little bit. there's like a tiny little glimmer of people actually looking at one another and being like, we got to protect ourselves and unionize and create stable systems that can withstand the blows that are coming from the capitalist death cult. But like, we're not, things are not going to improve, right? And you just need to take a look at idiots like this who are saying things like, I own an electrical company and I'm a smarter person than you because my daddy gave me an electrical company. Like, just incompetent losers who have never done anything meaningful in their life, telling other people how to live their lives, right? I'll send you a thing afterwards, okay, Travis? Hope springs eternal. I mean, hope springs infernal. There you go. Yeah, I thought things were bad in 2017. They're eons worse now, and no one's doing anything. I mean, to me, like the big turning point is the Jeffrey Epstein scandal. Like, they literally murdered that guy right in front of our eyes. We know that people like Bill Gates, Donald Trump, Clinton, many other millionaires were involved in that scandal. Like, we know that's true. Prince Andrew essentially confesses on national television. They straight up murder Jeffrey Epstein right in front of our face. And then on top of that, when they finally do actually arrest and try Ghislaine Maxwell, they take her little black book, which is full of all these guys' names for sure, and don't release it. So they're protecting them. They're protecting the pedophiles and the child rapists that exist in the society, and not incarcerating, not pursuing. And we're all supposed to just accept that, oh, well, they got Ghislaine, so everything's good, I guess, right? So, and what it does is it creates an obvious narrative, which is that the people at the highest end of the society, the beneficiaries of the slave system that we're all under, the ownership class, are essentially pedophilic rapists. And all of our labor and all of our effort that goes towards supporting the capitalist death cult are being used to buy an island and support people like Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell to round up children for the powerful to rape. Like, that's the structure of our society. And I refuse to participate in it. Right? And the people who are defending it, are either clueless, illiterate morons or literal psychopaths. And so you get to pick which one you'd like to be. I prefer to just not support it. Like, stop supporting it. Stop participating in it. Right? And the people who are doubling down and buying into the capitalist death cult will say all kinds of things to you about it. You can see that in the chat right over here. Right? You can just witness it right here if you'd like. Right? That psychopaths will gaslight you and say whatever they need to say to you to try to convince you that you're the one that's wrong while they rape a little girl on an island. Like, it's the nature of the system. Honestly, it's because they do think capitalism sucks but are blinded by propaganda. They think that capitalism has less flaws than communism. Yeah. I mean, that's a new thing that is arising, is this idea that, oh, communism is the same as Nazism. Like, that's something that I've seen very clearly over the last 5 years. That the CIA, obviously, and the State Department is supporting a propaganda drive, trying to equate the two and create an equivalency between the two, where none exists. There's no equivalency between the two. It's ridiculous to even try to say that there is. Like, it's really, really, like, you got to be really, really dim-witted to actually think that there's an equivalency between the two. Yeah, they murdered John McAfee too. They said he had dirt and they arrested him to kill him, and it was almost instant. Everyone was like, that's fine. Yeah, not as juicy as Epstein, so we'll ignore it more or less. Yeah. Julian Assange, yeah. I mean, the Edward Snowden situation, Julian Assange is a good example, right? Yeah, fascist indoctrination has been effective. And fascism is popular. Like, we're rather fond of fascism here in the West. We're rather like, fascism is very alluring because fascism gives you a narrative that tells you that you're a hero, and it tells you that you're the hero of your own. And it tells you that you're in control of your own fate. that you just need to try harder, and then it builds in, of course, this natural. You don't need to have any care about your community, and in fact, if the people in your community are failing, you get to just blame them and gaslight them, right? That's all. They cured cancer? Yeah, sharp uniforms. Thanks, Ralph. Certainly not ridiculous. Like, the fucking suit, like the suit jacket with like the shoulder pads, like they're wearing like fucking shoulder pads, literally, with like dumb hats. So, what should I search for this? Because I would like to read more about this. They cured cancer? I mean, cured cancer probably for the rich, right? Because, like, CRISPR cures cancer. Removes cancer immunotherapy. CRISPR gene editing improves cancer immunotherapy. CRISPR cancer trial success paves the way for personalized... Yeah, I love this gene editing stuff, dude. This is gonna open up like a huge wonky, like we're just gonna get really fucking wonky like with this. I'm absolutely sure that really really nutty shit is gonna come out with this gene editing. Like, and it just seems to me like, imagine like a Nazi regime that has access to gene editing. Like, what kind of crazy shit do you think they're gonna do with that? Like, it's pretty wild. It's pretty wild. No, I mean, it seems to me like it's interesting that while we have this technology that's coming up, it's interesting that while this technology is coming up, where we're having new, improved ways to efficiently deal with things like cancer, that nationalized healthcare systems are being privatized at the same time. Yeah, why do I use Google and Google Chrome? You're right about this, Command Genius. I should get away from Google and Google Chrome, and I used to. I used to get away from that. Yet it boosts more fascist search results than others. You're right. No, you're right, and I should get away from it. You're right. But at the same time, I sort of think to myself, like, it's good to know. Like, it's good to know what they're saying, right? I want an eye in the back of my head. Exactly, Radio Halifax. Dude, an eye in the back of your head. Oy. Just constantly getting hair in it. Yeah, duck, duck, go. There was another one, Ecosia, that I used to use for a little while, right? The Brave search engine. More and more, like, Google search results are actually declining because people are using YouTube and TikTok search algorithms directly. Like, they're not actually using Google. They're just going to YouTube directly and using those search results. Yeah, DuckDuckGo has shady business deals with Microsoft. Brave is homophobic, boosts crypto bullshit. Yeah, it's all fucking crazy. Not much left before Elon gets margin called and the stock goes into a death spiral. Investors are scrambling to get out of Tesla while they can. You take a look where it is. Like, we're coming up to the end of the year. Tesla stock is down, 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 and there's good reason for it. Like, the Twitter, is it a scandal? But the debacle, certainly. Like, the Twitter debacle has really, I think, shown people that Elon Musk is not a very intelligent person. Like, straight up. Like, if he had bought Twitter and then walked into it and been like, okay, this is working, so we're going to leave it as it is, and then, like, steadily kind of over time talk and discuss and think about how to actually implement some changes, or think about whether it's possible to implement some of these changes over time, right? That's not what he did. He walked in and he bulldozed the thing, smashed it apart, and I'm amazed that Twitter's still working, frankly. Did you hear the conspiracy that he sold his stock so his net worth would be $69.40? Yeah. That's just a meme. Like, that's all he is now. He's just a fucking meme. Like, and Elon Musk's entire motivation is that he wants the world to love him to replace the love he never got from his dad. That's his whole thing. Like, that's it. Like, one of the things that I think about constantly, is why in God's green earth would any billionaire want to be the center of attention? Like, it's such a bad idea that the really smart billionaires, the really really smart ones, are the ones who want you to never know about them, right? Like, that they are invisible. That you just don't know their names, you don't know what they hold, you don't know what they're doing. That as far as they're concerned, if you never know who they are, they've been successful. That's the smart billionaire strategy. And so Elon Musk's strategy, it's not really a strategy. It's just like he's just this enormous grifter who obviously wants the spotlight on him. And I really think it just comes down to, like, he just never got loved as a child. Like, he's just on this kind of rampage of being the center of everyone's attention. And he's like, he's got that kind of syndrome where he's going to say whatever he needs to say to garner as much attention as he possibly can. Yeah, we're going to do a self-driving car. Yeah, we're going to get to Mars for sure. Like, he's just going to say whatever. And now I think people are calling his bluff. Like, we're not getting to Mars, dude. Like, that's not happening. There's just no way that it's actually going to occur. You know? Certainly not if we're actually in, like, a competitive race against China. That, like, the productive forces and the productive capacity of the Chinese government is going to overwhelm Elon Musk, for sure. Yeah, and more, like, we're seeing that Elon Musk is just getting in the way of everything. That, like, instead of getting high-speed rail throughout California, which is what they were trying to do, he made sure the plan got kiboshed so that they could do Hyperloop, and now they've got nothing. They've, like, literally got nothing to show for it. Yeah, Elon's dad, arguably a very terrible person, unsurprisingly. I mean, the guy owned emerald mine, like, apartheid emerald mines. Like, I don't know what you need. What do you think of Wikipedia using Freedom House as a trustworthy source? I mean, Wikipedia for sure has, like, there are CIA agents throughout Wikipedia. Like, their job is to smooth out Wikipedia, right? I saw that happen during the this current conflict in Eastern Europe. Like, they would go through, you could see it happening. That, like, they're not omitting information, but they're definitely making it so it's like, let's make the Nazism less present. Let's replace things like ultra-nationalists. Like, let's try to obfuscate a little bit more. And so don't use Wikipedia as a source, usually. Like, anything before, like, 1800, you can pretty much use it for. Like, you can pretty much use Wikipedia for. But anything in the modern era, certainly, it's just not trustworthy. Better run some numerology on Elon's name until we get an entertaining result. I have no idea what that even means, but it sounds hilarious. Yeah, just dog whistles. He has had some good ideas come his way. I'm not sure they were his, but he's definitely pushed some good ideas. If we weren't being suppressed, we could launch this stuff out, but he did help push us forward a little, but then took 2 steps back. Look, because here's the thing, like, it's not to say that the ideas are bad, right? But, like, they're all just half-baked little boy ideas. Like, we're going to get to Mars. Like, no, we're not. Like, no, we are not doing that. That is not going to happen. You certainly can't do it with, like, private investment. Like, it's just not because it's not actually profitable to get to Mars. You don't do it based on a profit motive. That's not the reason you actually do these things. Like, it's an enormous investment for almost no return, and, like, the idea that we're going to go to another planet and terraform it successfully while we actually literally blow up the planet that we are on is a baby-brained idea. Like, no, it's not going to work that way. Maybe let's stabilize this place. Maybe let's show that we know how to terraform our own planet successfully. Because we're, like, accidentally terraforming it. We're accidentally terraforming it to turn it into a shithole. while simultaneously saying we're going to successfully terraform a dead rock to support life. Like, nah. Yeah. Shouldn't we focus on feeding and sheltering people here before Mars? It would be nice if the 1% went to Mars. Yeah. Improve the society, get rid of the capitalists, for sure. I just found an interesting thread on Twitter where NASA is showing a graph about CO2 over time. And there's multiple ones. There's even one that compares from country to country. Yeah. No, NASA's usually pretty good on this. Like that, NASA's like my go-to source for CO2 and for climate change data. Because right from the beginning, they were just like, this is what's happening. And it's also a good source to use because it shuts up a lot of the skeptics. Like, if you're not going to listen to NASA, like, then I don't know what to tell you. Yeah, we should send the rich to Mars to fend for themselves. Dude, excavating the moon has got to be the stupidest idea. Like, the stupidest idea. Just put it in the Discord, dude. Where is it? If you put it in the Discord, boop, boop. Here we go. The excavating the moon, like, we rely, yeah, hey, let's fuck up the tides. Like, we rely on the moon. We rely on the moon so much to do so many things. And yet, what, you're gonna excavate it? What is my opinion on National Bolshevism? I don't really have an opinion, dude. Like, this isn't 1930s Soviet Union. Like, my opinion on National Bolshevism is that, I mean, they won. The Bolsheviks won. Yep. Capitalism wants it all. Like, but at this point, it's just worship. It's money worship is what it is. It's money worship. That we've erected a false god. It's called money, right? And this false god, we're completely willing to destroy everything, to pay fealty to this obvious false god. That, like, we're literally going to destroy nature and destroy the ecosystem and destroy literally everything we need. We're going to poison our water. We're going to poison our air. We're going to poison the earth. We're going to make this place a shithole so that a couple of people can have invisible dollars on a screen that we invented in the first place. Like, that's what makes it insane. That's what literally makes it just absolutely crazy, go nuts, psycho. That we invented money in the first place, and now we're worshiping it to such a degree that we're willing to sacrifice literal, like, all of creation for it. Like, oh man. Like, we deserve everything that's coming our way. Like, we absolutely deserve it. Hey, Kami, would you ever do a stream with others? I'm trying to get enough followers to go live. I mean, if you invite me to a stream, yeah, I'm fine with that, dude. Any tips or advice? Just keep doing it. Just keep doing it. That's all. Like, I'm not the greatest person to get advice from. I literally just hit the stream. Like, I suck at all this technology. Like, I really do. It's a miracle that I've got this up and running, right? And it's just me. Like, I have no back end or anything. So my opinion is just keep doing it. That's all. And you'll feel like you're getting nowhere, and you'll feel like you're not succeeding, and you'll decline. You'll lose viewers. You'll have ups and downs, and you'll feel like you're not doing anything, and then before you know it, you'll pass the finish line, or you won't, because nobody gives a fuck, right? Like, that's the hard truth. But the only real advice that I can give you that makes any sense to me is just do it, and just keep doing it, and just don't stop. And you're gonna get a lot of people saying a lot of dumb fuck shit to you, because there's a lot of gaslighters in the conversation, right? A lot of people who are invested in the idea that you should fail, right? And the best that you can do is just ignore them and keep doing it because you know it's the right thing to do. That's it. So just keep doing it. Yeah, the problem with going to places like Mars is there's no ready working class to exploit. It's not like invading Nicaragua or the Philippines. Yeah. No, I think he means the ideology founded by Alexander Dugin. The National Bolshevism is basically the Jew killing part of Nazism mixed with the economics of Marxist Leninism. Yeah, get the fuck out of here with it then. Like, get the fuck out of it. I don't give a shit. Like, sorry, dude, you lose me with the Jew killing part. Like, what's my opinion of that? That's gross. That's my opinion. Fuck off. That's my opinion. Like, Jesus. It's the Nazbol shit. No, yeah, fuck that. No, the Nazbol shit is literally just like Nazis trying to stay Nazis. Wow. Maestro 67. Still with this, eh? I'm impressed. The staying power. What a legend. Rodney McNutt, wherever you are, bud. God bless your heart. And we have that super asteroid worth several quadrillion dollars. Yeah. Yeah, it's obviously fucking stupid, dude. Like the Nazbol shit, like it doesn't get more brain dead than this. Let's take two completely combative ideologies that do not merge together and try to merge them. Like, I don't know how you can try to say everyone should have access to the resources and we should raise the productive capacity and people should have control of the means of production, right? And then merge that with, but we should exterminate sections of the populace. Like, socialism for some, yeah. Go back to doing the floss on Fortnite. No, I don't think I'm going to watch the Avatar 2 movie. I don't give a shit. Like, I just don't care. Like, I'm sure it'll be very pretty. Like, it's the kind of thing that I actually think would make, like, a really beautiful screensaver. That's my opinion of Avatar 2. That every time I've taken a look at it, I've been like, oh, wow, yeah. Like, if I were to leave my computer on and go do something and then come back to my computer and Avatar 2 was playing as a screensaver, and then, no, but, like the plot of that, like, it's not going to be a plot. Like, I think that's more or less the point that I'm driving at. Like, I know what the plot of that movie is without having seen it. And it looks beautiful. So, great. Like, I think I've gotten what I want out of it. I don't need to sit down and be shown what is essentially a moving portrait for, 3 hours? Like, what do I think the plot is? I'll tell you if you're right. Okay, so the protagonist, whose name I think is Jake, right? He's still with the Na'vi. He's chilling out with them. They're being all like Pocahontas with nature. There's some humans with them because we need to represent humanity in a somewhat positive light to a certain degree. But the evil humans, return because they're interested in doing what the humans in this movie do, which is extraction and colonization. They have a conflict back and forth in many different landscapes, in many different views. The old villain returns somehow, and it's supposed to be like this big, like, oh my god, a huge twist moment. But it isn't really, because we're all just like, oh, it's the guy from the first movie, okay. They go to different places. We have, like, literally, like, 20 to 30 minutes of just people flying or swimming or going through trees. And it looks very pretty, but if you removed it from the movie, it wouldn't change anything. And then that all culminates to some kind of larger conflagrations. The humans are defeated, the Na'vi dance. Like, that's what happens. Like, I've seen the movie. Yeah, 80%. I suspect. but like that 20%'s not enough for me. So I'm like so there's 20% more. So okay. So some of the humans that are with the Na'vi switch sides and betray the Na'vi, but then right at the last moment betray the humans and then join the Na'vi again. Let's say. Yeah, dude, my background is theater. Like I've studied Shakespeare, I've studied Chekhov, I've studied the greats, I've studied Grecian theater. Like I know what the structure of storytelling is, and the Avatar movies are not very good in terms of their storytelling. Like, I don't give a fuck. Spoil whatever you want. I'm literally never going to watch this movie. Like it's just not important to me. Dancing with Wolves and The Last Samurai in Space. Oh, what happened there? Okay. The oh yeah, Avatar: The Last Airbender, dude. I'm actually kind of looking forward to the live action, even though I'm somewhat disappointed that they're just doing basically a straight retelling. But it looks like they're trying to do like a straight retelling. They're trying to do a straight retelling of it in a way that's actually very careful, and that I think that can be interesting. I think that there's something interesting in that, and their casting choices are so strong, and it looks like they're actually trying to give a shit about the subject matter to enough of a degree. But I do feel that at the end I'm gonna watch it and be like, I could just watch the cartoon again. Like, why didn't I just watch the cartoon again? So we'll see. The Legend of Korra. Yeah, The Legend of Korra was really great, but it suffered from... They refused to sign it on for 3 seasons, and it's really, really obvious that that Nickelodeon didn't like that Korra was gay. And they really, really were against the idea that Korra was going to be gay. And so they really, really were soft pedaling it the whole time. And it really made the whole thing suffer. That they could never, they never were able to make the full arc. Like Avatar: The Last Airbender was a full arc, and it was beautiful for that. And like Zuko's arc, like if you want to see a real story, like if you want to invest into a real story, into something that is genuinely amazing, top level in terms of storytelling, it's Zuko's arc as a character. That I don't think I've seen a better story arc told on television in my lifetime. Like Zuko is the top, is the pinnacle of actual, genuine storytelling, and it absolutely fits the what a story should actually look like. Which is why, like, most of the Marvel shit and the Star Wars shit and all of this kind of stuff is just trash. It's just dreck, right? Because, like, nobody changes, nothing ever happens, and it basically just exists to confirm that we're the good guy, USA, shoot the missiles, we're the best. Like, we're all supposed to drool over Tony Stark. He's literally an arms dealer who essentially abides by the American military and whatever they want to do. Right? He's a weapons contractor. That's who Tony Stark is. Then we got Captain America, like literally a United States genetic project, right? Like a psyop essentially. Who we're all supposed to be like, yeah, this represents the USA. This is the interest of the USA, and he goes overseas and just fights faceless villains, right? And with no critique of empire, right? It's all self-justified. That these are bad guys, and we're there to be bad guys and kill the bad guys, right? You got the Incredible Hulk, another fucking like genetic mutation from a fucking United States project, like yet another psyop. The God of Thunder, Thor, literally might as well be like blonde hair, blue eyed fascist, right? Like that we have the God of Thunder on our side. We are the pure Aryan race, right? And then you have the token woman and the token human. And off you go. There you go. You're off to the races. Like it's literally like white supremacy group ho, you know? And we're all supposed to be like, this is the best story ever told. And they had this whole fucking arc with the Thanos thing and like the trilogy and the Avengers this, and literally the last movie was a retcon where they just straight up were like, yeah, you know that whole story that we just told using 10 movies and a whole thing? Time travel. Time travel. Nothing matters. We can kill who we want. Like, fuck you. Like for real. Like, shut the fuck up. And after they did that retcon bullshit, and then Tony Stark dies at the end because he like snaps and then he dies, I was like, so? Just go back, retcon it. Who gives a fuck? like we don't know how to tell stories anymore because we've lost the thread of what's important as a culture. Like, and we don't actually care about critiquing ourselves. We literally don't care about good and evil anymore. Like, straight up, we don't care about good and evil anymore. And if you take a look at, if you go on Netflix right now, there's a television show called The Recruit, which is a show about a CIA lawyer who's tasked with trying to find former CIA assets that might go rogue and turn secrets on the CIA. And it's basically just bleak fascist propaganda, where if you are actually rooting for this guy, you are a Nazi. Like, it's pretty obvious. The whole show is just explicitly open about how scummy and shitty and demonic the CIA is. The motto might as well be, yeah, we're Nazis. What are you going to do about it? Like, what are you going to do about it? I mean, Avatar showing how bad capitalism truly is. Like, you're talking about the blue people Avatar. Like, I don't necessarily disagree with that, but it's definitely like, it's certainly anti-colonialism. Like, that's certainly the truth. And like it's like Pocahontas again, you know? And like, I don't hate that. It's just not particularly, like, the story isn't very strong, right? Like, it's not a very strong story. And so it gives it kind of a like he uses that as the basis of the storytelling because I think he doesn't want, like, I think he does believe in that, but he's not really willing to commit to it to such a degree because he understands that what he's here to do is really show you the technology. Yeah, and that's a good point, though, Adam. That's a fair thing to say, right? Anti-colonial, why'd the natives need a white guy to save them? Right? Yeah. Fair point. Touché, even. Just the way Zuko's hair changes throughout the show says so much about his character development. Yeah, and he, like, actually grows up. Like, which is pretty rare in animated shows, to actually have characters, like, really grow up and change. Right? Zuko changes. He is a different person at the end than he was at the beginning. And it's really, 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 really beautiful. So you knew that the actors that were selected for One Piece for live action based on the One Piece, dude, they're going to be making One Piece forever. Like, One Piece is going to be like season 553, One Piece. One Piece in space. That's how you know that the show will be over, when they're finally in space. Then you're just like, okay, it's done now. Do not make me talk about season 8 of Game of Thrones. Just do not. No. I could feel it. I feel it inside of myself. It's like, oh God, season 8, Game of Thrones. No. Okay, we're good. I made it. Okay. My best friend says the same thing. I'm trying to understand why there's so much hate. It's not hate. Like, it's just... My thing about Avatar as a movie is that it's, like, the story is weak, and it's pretty obvious that it's, like... Martin Scorsese essentially nailed modern movies, when he said, this isn't cinema, this is more like a roller coaster. That cinema is about storytelling. It's about telling a story, rooting a character in a real society that is understandable or relatable, right? Having the character go through a series of events. Like, here, I'll bring it up, man. Like, Dan Harmon is absolutely right. The story circle. Like, the story circle is very, very important. It's extremely important to how... Come on, get the fuck out of here. This is all I care about. Open this image. Boom. Boom. The story circle. Right? That stories are like this. That this is what makes something a story or not. Right? That, and they call it Dan Harmon's story circle structure, but it's not Dan Harmon. That this is the structure of stories. Every story that you've ever seen fits this. Right? The character's in a comfort zone, they desire something, they enter an unfamiliar situation, they adapt to the situation, they get what they desired, they pay a heavy price for winning, they return to their familiar situation, they have overall changed. That's Lord of the Rings, that's Hamlet, that's everything. Everything fits this structure if it's a story. And if you apply like most of the Marvel shit and most of the new Star Wars stuff and most of this kind of stuff, it doesn't. Because it's not doing this. It's just a roller coaster. That it's just presenting you with a character and then going, and then this happens, and 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 then they win, and then the credits roll. That's it. It's just, it's more like a roller coaster. And if you actually want, like, really good storytelling right now, some of the best storytelling that's happening on television, near as I can tell, is actually Rick and Morty. Right? It is actually Rick and Morty. I mean, but this is just it. I suspect it does. But it's that this isn't the heart of it. Right? That it is actually like this. Like, you can go down this and just check the boxes if you like, right? And tell, like, a pretty weak story. Like, I'm in a comfort zone. I desire ice cream. I'm out of ice cream, so I have to go down to the store. The store is closed, so I have to go to a farther store. I buy some ice cream, which cost me money. I come back home, and now I'm tired. There you go. That's a story. I just told you. Fits everything right around. But it's stupid. It sucks. It's a dumb story. The stakes are so low. Right? Like, it didn't really matter. Like, why'd you watch it? And Rick and Morty hits because every episode and everything they're doing is constantly, like, it is constantly reinforced by this foundation. And what I think is fascinating about Rick and Morty is that this season that they just did is the best season yet. And that's what makes it really, really fascinating to me. Because most of the time, how most shows work is that you get season 1 is good, season 2 will be better because they get support and funding and people actually believe in the project. Season 3 is usually the culmination of all of that, right? Most shows, in my view, should only go 3 seasons long. Because there's usually, like, an idea, a build-up, and a payoff. That's usually how that goes. And then season 4 begins to decline, and season 5 is just floating by on momentum. And by the time you get into 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, you're literally just like, your fans are tuning in because they're comfortable with the characters and they like the format. Like, you think about a show like Friends, right? Like, Friends was such a huge show at the time. If you go back and watch Friends, what you see is season 1 being okay and good, and you like the characters, everything's fine. Season 2 is better, because now they're established, and the studio is behind it now, and there's a lot more lift, right? Season 3 culminates a lot of the ideas that are created through season 1 and 2. And then season 4 begins to decline. Season 5 is kind of like okay. And then by the time you get to 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, it's trash. It's just literally like Phoebe's pregnant, and let's get Joey and Rachel together. They just Ross gets divorced again, right? Like, it's just garbage that they're just vomiting out in front of you, and you're watching it just because you're like, ha, Chandler, classic Chandler. Like, that's essentially all it is, and and you can't. And so with Rick and Morty, though, they went 1, 2, 3, and then 4, and then 5, and then 6. So they like experienced a bit of a dip, but now it's better than it's ever been, with a promise of like a real continuation of Rick's story. That they are actually crafting an overall arc in which the protagonist actually changes and is actually confronting something that is real and meaningful to him. And the promise of that is very exciting for me. And I actually found, no spoilers, but the last 2 episodes of Rick and Morty of this last season had a real beautiful bait and switch. Like a really beautiful bait and switch where you thought that like Rick was changing and doing something and like making a real decision to commit to the relationship between him and Morty, and then there's a switch on it where it's like, no, he's not doing that. It's the opposite. And it's like so beautiful. BoJack Horseman is a million times better than Rick and Morty. And BoJack Horseman, I think, got pulled because it started to become explicitly anti-capitalist. Like, if you watch the last season of BoJack Horseman, the creator wanted to keep making it, and I think that they just started pulling it because they pulled it because they were starting to become explicitly anti-capitalist. CR Strifey, good to see you, bud. You started watching Star Trek Next Generation, yeah. Then decided why not throw on the 60s version. The pilot episode is so cerebral. And the episodes I've seen always addressing something deep about humanity. Yeah, my number one complaint about modern Star Trek and modern storytelling generally is that it's about nothing. It's about nothing that matters whatsoever. Like, Star Trek's a good example and a good thing to bring up, because the Next Generation, like, these guys were like bringing up serious issues and taking a stance and defending that stance for good or ill. Right? And Star Trek and Star Trek The Next Generation have flaws and are products of their own time. Right? Like, the Ferengi are basically space Jews. The Klingons are all black, angry men. Right? Like, there are flaws. But the show always was attempting to take a modern day issue, something that was serious, and then take a progressive, socialist, and communist perspective and defend it. And I really admired that about that show. And you never see that anymore. You never see people bringing up a very serious issue and then defending it. Because to bring up a serious issue these days means talking about imperialism, talking about things like torture, preemptive war, like very, very serious issues, and then defending that position. And today's modern writers, I don't think, are capable of it, because they're basically just like the sons and daughters of producers, and so they've never actually lived anything. They don't know anything. They're illiterate, and that's why all of today's the modern day Star Trek is junk. Like, it's literally junk that will be forgotten. Like, we will still be talking about the original Star Trek and Star Trek The Next Generation, and like the remake of Star Trek and the remake of all this stuff and Picard and all this is just going to be completely forgotten. Netflix wouldn't let the Union Studios... Oh, is that what happened? I didn't even know about that. What do I think about Better Call Saul? I haven't seen it because that universe causes me psychic damage. That's the truth. Like, I didn't invest... One of the things that I have as a truism in my life now, because we've experienced so much betrayal as viewers, is I won't invest in a show until it's over and a couple of years have passed. So I didn't watch Breaking Bad until it was done, uh, and then people were like, "No, this is a masterpiece. Like it's excellent." And then I watched it because I refuse to take that kind of trauma and take that kind of psychic damage, and then be betrayed. Like, and people say that the word betrayal is too much, but that is what we are experiencing. Like, what they did to Luke Skywalker, like what they did to Luke Skywalker in the new trilogy is a betrayal. It's a betrayal to the character, it's a betrayal to the actor, and it's a betrayal to the viewer. How dare you take one of the great American heroes, Luke Skywalker, and turn him into that? How dare you do that? That is a betrayal. Like, absolutely not. Abso-fucking-lutely not. And so a Game of Thrones season 8 is a good example. I just refuse to invest any time in any of these projects because I assume that if they start good, it's only so that they can betray us. That's my assumption. Yeah, Futurama could have gone on forever for sure. There was like endless material. It was endless. Have I seen Moral Oral? I think I've seen like one episode. How far am I into One Piece now? The last time you asked me that, Eric, I think I stopped watching the show. That they just defeated Robin. They just did that arc with Robin's Kingdom, where they defeated the Sand guy. I forget his name, but they defeated that guy and reclaimed her kingdom. That's the thing. It's a critique of Christianity. I think that's why I didn't watch Moral Oral. It's like my whole life is a critique of Christianity. I didn't need a show to do it for me. In Avatar 2, they address societal issues such as elders not always listening to youth because of stubbornness or pride, and how capitalism milks society for everything and dumps husks into trash. Good to hear. Benito Pepsolini. Good to see you, Benito. Did you forget about me? How could I forget about you, Benito Pepsolini? Is there a reason why I stopped watching it? Not really. Like, there's not really a reason why I stopped watching it. It's just like there's so much of it, dude. Like, it was like One Piece is huge. It is just an enormous, enormous, enormous odyssey, right? And I just think that it's the type of show that I think that if you're really invested in, you're gonna really be. It's gonna be like part of your life, right? I already talked about Better Call Saul. I think I might try it now because the show's over and a lot of people are saying it's good, and I refuse to watch a show until it's over. I'm just not interested in it. Like, no, I'm not going to invest my psychic energy only to have it turned around and betrayed. Like, not interested. I grew up in pain and suffering, being lied to by my family. I know the pain. Like, yeah, a lot of people are saying Better Call Saul was really good. And the thing that made me skeptical about Better Call Saul is that it had all of the hallmarks of just being like a shitty spinoff. You know? Just like literally like, let's take the Breaking Bad crowd and just funnel them into this spinoff and have it just have momentum. And that momentum will carry through and will just siphon a lot of money away. It had all of the hallmarks of being a cash grab. It had all of the hallmarks of just being like a shitty thing that nobody would care about. And so I just refused to participate. But now it's over, and there's a lot of people, you guys are not the first, being like, Better Call Saul was really good. And I've seen enough. The thing that finally convinced me that Breaking Bad was absolutely like an American masterpiece, the thing that really convinced me was actually the meme culture. That the memes just like Walter White is a legendary figure in meme culture. That he's one of the great American tragic, like, he's not a hero, like he's one of the great American tragic figures. And I think Walter White, like Heisenberg, is going to continue on in the consciousness of humanity, because he's such a strong, powerful figure. Like, the story of Walter White is Shakespearean in its scope. It's horribly tragic, and it takes not all, but it takes many of the horrible truths of American society and twists it into a single figure that if it shines light on the horror of the American healthcare system. It shines light on the horror of the American education system. It shines light on the horror of the war on drugs. It takes all of these horrific things that Americans are accepting about their society and then ties it all together into this single figure and presents to you this at first sympathetic character who is just tied up in this crazy journey because he thinks he's going to die and he wants to provide something for his family, but then eventually it turns and he's not going to die anymore, and he's already got enough money to provide for his family, so there's something else going on now. And then you see that it's no longer about providing for family or sacrificing himself for some kind of greater good, but it is about his own pursuit of power. And that Breaking Bad is actually a story about what having institutions that facilitate kind of a mad journey towards power looks like, and that Walter White eventually, and the brilliance of Breaking Bad, the true brilliance of Breaking Bad, is that there is a point, and it's different for many people, which makes it even better, but there is a point where you know that Walter White has gone too far. That he begins a very sympathetic figure, and you're really right along there with him. But there just does come a moment, and there's definitely a moment, where you know that Walter White's in the wrong, and you know that he deserves what's going to happen to him. And you understand that when it happens to him, that it's right. It's right that it happens. And if you don't think so, if you come out of that thinking that Walter White is somehow still the good guy, then you're probably just a Nazi, right? And that's a good thing to realize about yourself as well. That I definitely have seen people come out of the other side of media. Like, Rick and Morty is actually a really good case of this. Where, like, if you think Rick's the good guy, if you think Rick is somebody to look up to, if you think that you're supposed to be a Rick, there's something wrong with you. And I think it's completely fine to say that. That at no point are you supposed to think that this guy is someone to, like, value or acknowledge, right? That Rick is a fatally flawed person. That he's very intelligent. He's the smartest man in the universe. But that comes with a subset of deep flaws that he's constantly investigating and are constantly being brought up. That you're not watching someone to look up to and be like. You're witnessing the tragedy of superintelligence. That people can be super intelligent but still be deeply shitty people. And what Rick's story really does seem to be is about how to find balance within yourself. And that Rick might become a good person, but he certainly isn't at the beginning. Walter White is literally me, for real, for real. Yeah, right. How long is Breaking Bad seasons? 5 seasons? 5 seasons, I think. Am I right about that? Wrong about that? I don't remember. Jesse, we need to seize the means of producing Jesse. Yeah. Like, I feel like some of the most powerful scenes in Breaking Bad are when people are confronting Walter about, like, Walter wants more. He wants more power. He wants more for himself. He doesn't want to be in the middle. He doesn't want to be working for someone else. He doesn't want to be doing this. And people confront him over and over again and say, why did you do this? We had such a good thing going here. It was working. You were making hand over fist, but it wasn't good enough. Hey Tebow, how you doing, bud? Yeah, let's get back to the basics. Let's get back to the fundamentals. Anemone, here we go again. That's such a meme. I love it. So coming from TikTok, why? Where have you ever seen? Yep. Time for things to get good. Political talk time. Yeah, here we go. Oh yeah, here we go. So we got a couple of people. Oh, a Roblox. Very good. Very good. Lolek123 Roblox. Good start, guys. Good start. Where have you ever seen communism be? Yeah, brace yourself for flowers and head explosions. Yeah, thanks, radio. Where have you ever seen communism be successful? You got to look no farther than China, guys. Like, what is happening in China is pretty straightforwardly and pretty obviously a successful communist project. That the Chinese have built, like, what is it, 200,000 kilometers of high-speed rail. They are on the cutting edge of quantum computing. They've lifted 80 million people out of poverty. Literally before the communists showed up. Do you think the people of China enjoy their regime? That is an excellent question, Tebow. And we've actually polled them. That Harvard University did a 17-year-long poll of China, of the people of China, and not only did they find was there majority support amongst the people of China for the Communist Party and for the National People's Congress, but they found that as time moved forward, that the support strengthened. So when you say, do you think the people of China enjoy their regime? We know that they do. We know that they do because we've asked them. Roblox says, bro, you got zero army. How are you going to overthrow the government? I have no intention of doing that. That my position is actually that we're going to go through a period of balkanization, which means that provinces and states will break apart from the federated system, and that it's only after such a period of time that communism might take hold in the country. That we're too big, we're too disorganized, we're too disinterested in unifying projects, we're too illiterate, we're too stupid. We're not actually, there isn't enough class consciousness in the society yet. And it's more likely that states will begin to secede because not only are the people of those states invested in the idea of not paying taxes to a government that gives them nothing, but also the rich will begin to foment secession movements because they want to keep their money. So I think my position is not that we're going to put together a revolution and actually overthrow the country, but it is that as the country begins to balkanize, we need to begin to organize locally so that as that balkanization occurs, we can put forward communist ideas within the areas that balkanize. World War III about to happen? I mean, dude, like, World War III's been happening. Like, like, it just hasn't been happening to you. Also, why give high-speed rail as an example? Japan has it, so do a lot of European countries. Because of the pace of it, because of how quickly it happened, I think. And the fact that we don't have it. Like, we've got none. Like, we've got 0%. Like, the Belt and Road Initiative is a major success. And the creation of the Belt and Road Initiative is a major success coming out of a communist country. Well, I should be more fair. China calls itself socialist with Chinese characteristics, with the goal of becoming communist through time. Oh, guys, I gotta pause for 1 second. I'll be right back. I just need to use the bathroom, okay? Sorry. I'll be right back. 1 moment. Oh, sorry about that, guys. I know that makes for good viewing, doesn't it? Literally just dead air for a minute. Fantastic. Yeah. We're back. We're back. Sorry about that, guys. Oh, I didn't lose my TikTok viewership. Thanks, guys. I value and appreciate you. Yeah. Can't say no to Mother Nature, right? When nature calls. Too bad. But don't worry, you're completely in control of your own body, and you're absolutely in control, for sure. What do we got? I think China is going too far. Regarding overshooting the resources one uses in order to sustain how society works, the US uses 5.1 Earths, while China are using a mere 2.1. It's 1.1 over the limit. I think that China finds itself in a position where, like, China knows, and the Chinese government knows, that the West is not responding rationally to climate change. It knows that the West's goal is to go to war with China. And so China has to make decisions for its long-term success. Like, it just has to make these decisions. And it knows that it doesn't have an ally in the West. It knows that it's not getting any support. And so it's just got to do it. It's just got to do these things. It's got to build the solar panels. It's got to do this kind of stuff. Because if they don't, no one will. And that's more or less the opinion. And so the criticism of, like, China's, like, using too many resources, it's like, well, who's going to then? Like, who's going to actually build these solar panels? Who's actually going to build a green energy grid? Who's actually going to focus on this stuff while simultaneously building a military that's strong enough and powerful enough to defend itself from the Americans, right? The Americans are explicit. Like, they want to destroy and balkanize China. They're explicit. Like, they're not fucking around. Right? You think China sees the documents that the Americans release and goes like, no, those are fine. The Americans are fine. Like, no, they need to protect themselves. They need to protect themselves. Like, not gonna lie, Serbian army on high alert and near Kosovo borders, Turkey tension, Taiwan and China, yep. North Korea, South Korea, I think it will happen. Well, what's your definition, Roblox? Because, like, from my perspective, the Americans are destroying... Like, last year, they overthrew, like, 5 or 6 African governments. They're constantly in South America, constantly destroying those countries, constantly destroying Africa. The Middle Eastern conflict isn't good enough? Like, where's your line? Like, when is it suddenly World War III? Because my perspective, like, if I was living in Afghanistan, I would think that World War III was upon me. Just because US and Canada has terrible infrastructure doesn't mean you need to go communist. But yes, it does. Because the reason why we have terrible infrastructure and the reason why we can't build infrastructure is because we're constantly paying fealty to these worthless capitalists, right? So think, like, a high-speed rail line is case in point. Let's say we wanted to build a high-speed rail line. Well, what would happen? We would announce the plan to build a high-speed rail line. The capitalists would buy all the land, right? And they own the politicians, because that's the nature of the system that we live under. And they're going to jack up the price of the land by 10 times, leaving the politicians in a spot where they've got to try to find the money to be able to buy this land that's 10 times overvalued. And so they're turning to their voters, being like, hey, this is what we're going to do, haha. And the voters are going to be like, go fuck yourself, right? And so the whole thing falls apart, right? That's the story of American capital and American democracy, right? That's the reason why we can't build infrastructure. Because we're constantly paying fealty to these worthless parasites who provide zero value and, in fact, negative value to our society, right? Whereas a communist society would say, our plan is to build this rail. And capitalists would buy up the land and be like, ah ha ha, you got to pay us this much for it. And they'd literally be like, no, we don't. Build the rail. And if the capitalists stand up and say, well, you owe us, they will arrest those people and put them in jail. Which I'm fine with, by the way. Because fuck you, capitalists. Sorry, Mohammed. Good to see you, bud. Bro, we going on Kosovo. Wait, I still haven't asked. Do you recognize Kosovo, Mr. Canadian? I'm going to be really honest with Benito. I don't know enough about it to really. I know that there's been, like, the capitalists need to get not involved. Like, that's really the truth. Like, they just need to fuck off and let the people decide the fate of this area, right? But that's not what's going to happen. So Canada needs to move away from this, and they will. They have a much better track record. We'll see. In the NASA thread that I posted earlier, if you scroll down, they show how the U.S. is by far a greater pollutant. Yeah, like, China has, like, a spike-up moment where they're, like, over the last couple of years, they've been the number one. But overall, America is for sure at the front. Like, yeah, capitalism fails wherever it's tried. Why double down on failure? Well, and it's even worse than that, Grinning. Like, capitalism is structured to fail. Like, it literally is structured to fail. That eventually... all the like, play one game of Monopoly and you'll see it. Like, I don't need to describe it. You've all played a game of Monopoly. That's how it goes. American infrastructure bad. Bro, visit the Balkans. Like, go visit some shitty islands. That's the same as the entire continent of America. Roblox says, well, since fascism is rising in Italy and lots of places, and Nazis rebel in Germany, trying to overthrow the government. Guess it's just an average day in Europe. Yeah. That's ridiculous. Look at the Netherlands. Great example of great design, which is where I'm from. Okay, but, like, the reason, like, so the Netherlands often gets touted as having a robust social democracy, right? The reason why the Netherlands has the social democracy that they have, that we all keep saying, oh, wow, we should try to have a social democracy like that, right? And the idea in the West, in Canada and the United States, is that we're going to vote in people who are going to move us towards a social democracy, much like they have in the Netherlands, failing to recognize that that's not how the social democracy in the Netherlands actually developed. That the social democracy that develops in the Netherlands is because the capitalists concede to the workers in lieu of revolution. Because there's a fucking literal communist country that exists because of revolution on their border. And there are people within the Netherlands saying, why don't we just have a revolution and get rid of these worthless capitalists? And it's credible. And it's real. And so the capitalists say, well, how about instead of that, we give you this? Well, how about instead of that, we give you that? Well, how about instead of that, we do that? Right? And so what you end up with is this concept of a social democracy, which is the capitalists still have the means of production, and they still control the means of production within the society, but they're so scared of revolution and overthrow that they're willing to capitulate on certain things, right? And so this has put this country in this kind of area, which incidentally the capitalists will certainly dismantle. That if there isn't actually a credible threat on the left from communists, that the capitalists will eventually dismantle the social democracy of the Netherlands. Like they're doing here in Canada now. Like, we here in Canada are experiencing an explicit, in-your-face, 100% dismantling of any social democracy we actually had. Our healthcare system is being dismantled. Our democracy is literally being dismantled. Like, here in Ontario, the Ford administration literally pushed through legislation, meaning that in Toronto, the council only needs a 1/3 minority vote in order to pass legislation now. Like, the antithesis of democracy. And that's on the books. That's law. Like, we are experiencing a dramatic assault against the social democracies. And the Netherlands are not going to be any different. Like, the capitalists are coming for you, bro. They're coming for you. And the only way to actually defend what you already have is through the threat of revolution and through the threat of some kind of revolutionary force. that anything else the capitalists will simply ignore. And I mean, North America is certainly corrupt. Like we've legislated corruption. Shared this before, but there is a debate between two communists moderated by a communist regarding China, and it covers the BRI. And I agree with the China is bad too guy. Michael Hudson and Patrick Bond. Oh yeah, okay. I think China's infrastructure is still better than any country. I mean, I don't make the argument that China's infrastructure is better. I make the argument that it developed so rapidly, and that the reason why it developed so rapidly is because of the Chinese Communist Party and the National People's Congress. We didn't need communism in Western Europe to get high-speed rails cross country. Right. Like, I already went through that. But isn't the communists failing in China? People already dislike this regime. Nope. Like, it's just false. The people of China are more and less pleased, like, with what's happening in China. I think you would be too. Like, if you were literally living in a society that was emerging from the 100 years of humiliation, where there were millions of people living in grinding poverty, and a political force swept through, rid your country of the imperialists and the people who were taking advantage of you, and actually embarked on a plan of industrializing your country and a plan of poverty alleviation, you'd be over the moon about it. Right? You'd be over the moon about it. Yeah. Imagine believing that China is failing. Like, it's really, really tough. What do you mean? Don't you see all these protests because all the Chinese government is like, oh yeah, of course. This is the classic, like, there's no protests in China, so China is authoritarian. There's protests in China, so China is failing. Like, this is one of these things where you can critique it both ways, and people do. And dude, like, protests are normal. Like, literally. Your own society has protests. Like, the Occupy Wall Street movement was a massive protest movement that happened in America. The Freedom Convoy, massive protest movement, happened in Canada and throughout the United States very recently. Protests are normal. Protests are a normal thing that happens in every structure in every society. Because people come together, take to the streets, and air their grievances. And it's a real learning moment for societies, because you get to actually see how does your society respond to protest. Like, people protesting is not the sign of a failed society. Protest movements are normal. All societies and all structures have them. And what matters is how the systems and how the society responds to the protest. That's where the learning comes from. So in the example of these Chinese protests, well, the Chinese government responded. And they're actually loosening up restrictions now because of it. Because they're looking at it and they're saying, you know what, there's something to this. We are asking a lot of our citizens, right? And so there's a negotiation that happens, right? Compare that to the West, where you had like the Occupy Wall Street movement. What was the response? Get fucked. That was the response. Fuck you. That's it. Nothing happened. Nothing changed, right? Go get fucked. Fast trains are not a good thing. They break down faster, require more maintenance. Okay. Your media is only focusing on the tiny minority of dissidents in China. And I mean, like, again, like, protests are normal. Like, I've been involved in many protest movements, and I spend a lot of time studying protest movements. Like, every society protests. Like, it's as normal gets. There's just literally no example of a society where there's no such thing as protest. At least I like Biden. He will do anything for ice cream. That is, like, remarkably wholesome. Biden will do anything for ice cream. What China has that the USA does not is national identity. Nobody is proudly saying they are a United Statesian. I mean, sure, you can say American, but you're still a European. I don't know, dude. There's a lot of, like, USA and, like, the MAGA hats. Those guys. But I understand what you mean. Like, China is a 4,000-year-old civilization. Like, they have a good sense of who they are, you know? John, have you seen that one video mocking how the BBC reports on the DPRK? I mean, I've seen lots of videos mocking how the BBC reports on the DPRK. It's like normal shit happens, and it's like grainy screen with a guy. Here we see in the DPRK the evil regime. Like, we're so gullible. Like, all you got to do is show grainy footage and like a sepia tone reporter, and have the music going like brrr, brr, brr. And then the reporter just needs to say things like, of course they rebuilt after the tragedy of the United States bombing, but at what cost? And all the fascists are like, at what cost? It's fucking ridiculous. Yeah, the future shall show us what will happen. That's absolutely true, Roblox. That's absolutely true. But I think we've got to get more prepared for... Yeah, news channels are just manipulating people, dude. Like, and you don't need to believe that. Like, that's just the truth. Like, we know what Operation Mockingbird is. Like, the CIA has an Operation Mockingbird, had a PSYOP called Operation Mockingbird, where they explicitly admitted that they were manipulating news stories and manipulating stuff, right? I don't pick a Trotsky. I don't care. I don't care. Like Trotsky or Stalin. I think that the story of Trotsky and Stalin is one of the great tragedies of communism, and I think it would be a really, really good story to tell. That's what I think. I think that Trotsky wrote some very interesting stuff, and so did Stalin. That neither of them were correct in either way, and I think the great tragedy of those two figures is that they could not reconcile their differences. That Trotsky being exiled from the Soviet Union is a tragedy, and made the Soviet Union weaker, without a doubt, made the Soviet Union weaker. That the Soviet Union would have been stronger with Trotsky and the Trotskyists in it, and that the problem that communism and the communist parties have yet to solve is when you have two major factions come together like this, how do you... And one inevitably defeats the other, right? Because that's how it works. One defeats the other. How do you ensure that this faction, the losing faction, is not alienated and does not... and there isn't a total break in the party, right? That happened between Mao and Deng as well. The Gang of Four, right? Like, it's a problem. It's a problem. And one that I think communists are yet to solve. So, John, I was asking about the video that reports on the Queen's death by making it as if the BBC was reporting on the DPRK. Oh, that would be funny. Because, like, yeah, like, if the shit that the Brits did for the Queen was done for, you know, Kim Jong-il or any of these guys, right? It'd be like, well, it's a cult of personality, and look how evil, and they're spending all their resources on worshiping this cult figure. Meanwhile, like, the Queen dies, and everyone, God save the Queen. Be sure to hit the like button, be sure to hit the share, be sure to send it around, be sure to let people know I exist. Give me the diamonds, donate some money, right? The donation's in the description. You guys know what to do. God bless each and every one of you. Thanks for being here. I'm as flabbergasted as anyone about this. Almost all my family members back home has caught Omicron. It has only further intensified my contempt for these protesters. I don't know. I am a bit sympathetic. Like, I do think that, like, base humanity comes into play at some point, right? Like, where, like, people feel cooped up. People feel cooped up and for better or for ill. And, like, do I agree with what they're doing? Not really. But, like, I get it. I'm not sitting here being like, fuck these guys, you know? Like, I get it. Like, humans are humans, and I can understand. CIA is as SCP full of secrets. They'll do anything to contain subjects that know too much. The Illuminati incident, they are trying to mix up the truth by simply faking it. Yeah, I mean, that's just it, right? Like, the CIA will tell the truth on occasion, and that's what makes it complex, is that, you know, you tell two truths and a lie. But the real strategy, and the strategy of the news networks at this point, is mainly omission, right? That there are major events that occur in the world that you simply don't talk about. And if somebody does talk about it, then if somebody does talk about it, then you just say that it's propaganda, and you dismiss it, right? And you just convince people and you train people to get into that mode of thinking, right? So if you talk about like the current conflict that's happening in Eastern Europe, you'll never talk about the coup in 2014, and you'll never talk about the war that NATO funded neo-Nazis, right? You'll never talk about those things. Like those are just omitted from the discourse. And it's just that, oh, the Russians are crazy. That's it. That's the best you'll ever get. And it's, Putin's illegal war. That's all you get. So there's no genuine conversation about it. And it's just omission, because they know that if they actually even talk about the issue that happened, even if it is to lie about it, well, people will figure it out pretty fast. Ugh. Opinions on Tito? I don't really know much about Tito, honestly. I do know that communists really like this guy, and I also know that he killed a lot of Nazis, so I'm a bit partial to him. Like, anybody that wants to kill Nazis sounds good to me. Yeah, the CIA telling the truth? Well, they do tell the truth on occasion, right? Like, you gotta... Yeah, I'm sure he did. Like, again, I don't know that much about Tito. I can't really comment on him. And Benito, one of the things that I think people don't really understand this about me, right? And I think this frustrates people, and I can tell that it frustrates people, is that I don't take sides when it comes to these figures. Like these communist figures, I really don't take sides. Because I find that, first of all, the events happened so long ago. Like, to me, these are just historical figures. And because I have this background in storytelling, I see these people as figures in a drama. And I don't think that they're villains or heroes. I think that they're just what they are. And that most of them, most of the time, are reacting to the circumstances that are around them and are forced to make decisions that they otherwise, that they're forced to make a choice between many bad choices. And so they don't, and most people, when they get to critiquing these figures, don't want to admit that. They don't want to admit that it's a choice between many bad choices. And that most of the time these people make the best decision of the shitty decisions they have to make. And I don't really care about picking sides. So if Stalin hated Tito, I'm sure he did. It doesn't make me think less of either. Because I don't venerate Stalin. I don't sit here and be like, Stalin was the god king of all communism, right? Like, it's just not how I think about Stalin. Oh yeah, dude. I bring up the one. My argument is why we should. The stolen election discourse. I mean, George Bush loses the election against Gore. It's the Supreme Court that appoints him. The fact is here, NATO is trying their best to fake the mistakes that caused the conflict. The reason why I'm being a bit circuitous here is because I literally get like shadow banned over this, but even talking about this. Yeah, Russia gave thousands of warnings. Yeah, being ignored. Yeah, now they're crying. Yep, I think that's pretty accurate, dude. Everything you just said there makes sense to me. 9/11. Hey, Sigma, how you doing, bud? 9/11 was a revenge after the massive U.S. bombing of all these Iran and Syrian countries. Yeah, I mean, I think that that's pretty accurate. The historical figures in question had long-term consequences ex-Yugo countries is facing today. I mean, I would argue that NATO has more to do with that than anything. Like, it's like NATO's fucking around. Serbs did 9/11 as revenge for 1999. Hey, Base, how you doing, bud? Hey, how you doing? Dude, is the chat going to devolve into 9/11 conspiracy? Here we go. Here we go. I know, Adam, you're here. You can go hard on this. I know you like to go hard in the paint on 9/11, bud. I like this headline: Canadian Army feeling squeeze of more demands, fewer soldiers. This is something that I'm seeing more and more in the media. It's also happening in America, where the imperial Western powers are failing to recruit. They're not getting recruitment numbers. And I think it is because more and more people really do understand that we're a shitty empire. We're a shitty empire causing problems out in the world. And I think that 9/11 was just a prank that went too far. Hilarious, dude. Hey, Leon, how you doing, bud? I hope you've been well too, bud. I hope you've been well too. What a world we live in, eh? A canary in the coal mine. People keep leaving Ontario in record numbers for affordable homes and a better life. Capitalism's totally working. Everyone's fleeing from it. NATO definitely did a big fucking consequence for ex-Yugo, yeah. Tito had a lot to do with it. I suspect so. I mean, fascists usually want revenge for someone killing fascists, right? Actually, that attack was very smart, but at what cost? They still didn't want. I don't think that the expectation was that they would win. Like, if you're talking about 9/11 still, all 9/11 was to wake America out of its torpor. That the American citizens were living in this kind of a dream world where they genuinely thought that they were this like loving nation spreading goodness throughout the world. Like they genuinely thought this, and many people still do. That people at that time genuinely thought that what the military was doing was like sending foreign aid, literally care packages is what people thought we were doing, and they just didn't know or understand that we were bombing the shit out of every place and cooing leaders, and and something like 9/11 is a radicalizing event for many Americans, and yeah, nobody wants to die for the wealthy elite anymore. I know, Rusty. I know. No one wants to die for blood and oil, like for gold. Yeah. What did Ligon Dizzy say? Serbia stonk. God is a Serb. Oh, okay. Major plot twist. I'm not getting a hairless cat. Sigma. Why are you not getting a hairless cat? You were so involved. You were so gonna do it. What happened? Tito didn't kill real fascists. He just killed Nazis? Are you trying to say that Nazis aren't real fascists? What's the claim here, Benito? What's the story? Because I would argue that Nazis are like fascists. They're not just like fascists. They are fascists. I'm confused by your position. Please enlighten me. U.S. is freaking dumb. People can't answer simple questions since U.S. opened all those conflicts. Yeah. Ooh. In all caps, Benito writes, absolutely not. Nazis are not fascists. Well, Benito, you're gonna have to explain that one to me, because my understanding. I do not consider those animals to be worthy of a title of a fascist. So they're like beneath fascists, even. Like they're like that. Like somebody walking around calling themselves a fascist is still better than a Nazi. He's getting upsetty spaghetti. Yeah, Base, get used to it, dude. Get used to it. There's more good than bad, honestly. You get TikTok people in here, and the bad ones go very quickly, and the good ones stick around. And I rather appreciate that. No, I don't go hard into 9/11. Come on, Adam. Don't bullshit me. Don't bullshit me. Come on, bud. You go hard in the paint on 9/11, bud. I'm not complaining. I'm just saying. No, I know you have never gone deep into the facts or evidence because I do stonewall you. I'll admit it. I do stonewall you. Like I just don't want my channel to turn into a 9/11 conspiracy channel. You know what I mean? Like it's that's the simple truth. Because you know my whole thing. I don't need to go into it. I just don't think it has as much meaning as I think you think it does. Roblox says Nazi ideology is a kind of fascism, and it wasn't bad at all. The propaganda made it look evil. Hold on, Roblox. Hold on, bud. I'm gonna let you know right now. I do not tolerate Nazi apologencia, even a little. Nazi ideology is a kind of fascism, and it wasn't bad at all. The propaganda made it look evil. There were no proofs of gassing and any other war crimes on people. Holocaust denialism, eh, bud? Holocaust denialism. Hold up. Time out. Wait a minute. Hold the phone. Yep. Ice them. I love it. Let's see what the chat has to say. Hold up. Kick this MFer out right now. Holocaust deniers are really silly. Ice them. Purge them. Gulag this fool. Perfect. My chat never lets me down when these guys show up. Sigma. Come on. We're communists. We gulag people. We do not gas people. We are better than that. Good to see you, R2D4R, dude. Good to see you. Denying the Holocaust in 2022. Good Lord. Yep. Bye. Apology accepted, Sigma. I appreciate it. We all got excited, okay? We were all very excited. Kind of sad to have Mussolini as your idol, not gonna lie. Yeah, bro. Like, Roblox. The Holocaust happened, bro. Like, that is a for sure. Oh, here we go. Lolik123 Roblox, living up to his namesake. The Austrian painter made a speech about saying the truth about UK bombing German people for 3 months before Germany responded, and other stuff. This is great. I love it, man. I do. I love it. Holocaust denial is like one of those really, like, that's a real tough one. That's a real tough one, man. Like I do wonder about it. Like, I wonder about it. I think it's just like, it's too much for people, I think. I really do think that there is, like, people are confronted with the reality of what that means and the imagination of what it would take to actually embark on this journey to commit the Holocaust. And I don't think that they can take it. So they got to create this fake narrative of this completely fake and false narrative that somehow makes it so that that event never happened, as if it's better. Oh, here we go. Roblox says, not gonna lie, all these camps, they're wanting proof of people dying, only tortured Jews, had to work for Germans. Yeah, no proof of people dying except for, like, all of the eyewitness testimonies, the people going into the camps, right? The soldiers, both Americans and Russians. Like, when you've got both sides of a conflict agreeing that something happened, chances are good that that thing probably happened. Like, it's pretty rare. Bud, Roblox, Bud. Like, yeah, no proof. Piles of corpses photographed. Yep. Literally, we've got train stations. We've got Jews trapped in streetcars being sent to rail cars, rather, being sent to these. We've got the infrastructure of the gas chambers, bro. We've got the infrastructure of the gas chambers. Like, we've got chambers where there are tubes connected to big vats of gas where they would gas Jews. We have people coming out of the camps saying that is where they would gas us. Like, the evidence for the Holocaust is overwhelming. Like, yeah, the Nuremberg trials, where the Nazis admitted to it. Like, the evidence of this event is so overwhelming, that to deny it discredits you as a thinker. Like, straight up, we no longer need to listen to anything you have to say and take you seriously as a person. That is how devastatingly bad it is to actually stand up and deny the Holocaust. You invalidate your opinion. We don't need to take you seriously as a person, because you're not. The Holocaust, for sure, 100%, no doubt, we may never know the truth. Shut up. That is so embarrassing, dude. You've got the Russian military, the Soviets, as eyewitnesses with physical evidence. You've got the Americans and their military, the British, the Canadians, with all of their physical evidence and all of their eyewitness testimonies. You've got the Jews themselves and all of their evidence and all of their eyewitness testimonies. And then you have the Nazis confessing and providing more evidence and more physical truth. There is nobody who was involved in the event saying that's bullshit. Everyone came out of it agreeing it was real. But you, some kid with Lolek123 Roblox, we still don't know all the Reich secrets. So what? All right, this is amusing at first, but we're good. It's grow up time, bud. Like, it's for real. It's time for you to grow up. Like, seriously. Well, I'm not here to babysit you. Like, grow up. Get the fuck out of here. No, I mean, like, yeah. Jesus Christ. You see what we're dealing with, guys. Like, you see what we're dealing with. Like, so Benito, now we're going to focus on you. You are the reason people don't take fascism as a true ideology. Care to expound on this? Fascism as a true ideology? Care to explain your position? How many TikTokers banned today? Good to see you, Tinker. Not that many, actually. We just banned a Holocaust denier. And one of the Ronnie McNutt guys. Yeah, we got one of them. And but so far, actually, pretty reasonable people. Yeah, I kind of want to let Benito hang himself. That's what I want to see. I want to see the public self hanging. That's what I'm looking forward to. Because it's always good to hear the reasons, right? It's always good to hear the reasons. Not wanting to be that conspiracy person sounds like being afraid to speak truth to power because of fear of being canceled or not being taken seriously. Do you know how most people view communists? Oh, Adam, come on. Come on. We've got to pick our battles, right? Here we go. First and foremost, Nazism is not the same as fascism. Right out the gate, yeah. I mean, let's give Benito the benefit of the doubt. Let's hear him out, okay? Because it is actually true. Like, fascism was born in Italy. Mussolini's party was the fascist party, and then fascism became. No, Benito, you carry on. Fascism became synonymous with the larger movement of the Axis, that you had Germany, Japan, and Italy, and a smattering of other allies that all became known as fascist, and so Nazism, right, which comes out of Germany, the Nazi Party, is in truth its own thing, and that the two become somewhat synonymous because of the allegiance between Mussolini and Hitler. Like, I think that that's a fair thing to say. Yeah, true fascism. So okay, let's just cut to it, Benito. What is true fascism? By your definition, what is true fascism? What is it about fascism that separates it from Nazism? What is fascism? Forget about Nazism. Forget about all that. What is fascism to you? Yeah, someone hasn't read Black Shirts in Red or The Anatomy of Fascism, for that matter. There are so many proofs that Jaskix, dude, if you're going to come in with comments like this, maybe start on the right foot, right? There are so many proofs that communism didn't work. We have Gulag survivors. Like Nazis survived the Gulags, it's true. German army, yeah, the Nazis. Soviet army, oh, interesting. Polish people, yeah, Nazi sympathizers. German people, Nazi sympathizers. Ukrainian people, Nazi sympathizers. And now we have one man on YouTube who is denying what is true communism by your definition. What? Bro. Jaskix. Dude. Aim to kill, just coming in like an idiot. I love it when idiots say that kind of dumb shit, because you don't know. Like, you don't know the first thing about me. You don't know anything about me. For all you know, I go to the gym every single day. Like, for all you know, I'm like a cardio king. Like, you don't know anything. Like, do you know what my father looks like? Do you know what my brother looks like? Do you know that there are many different body types that exist in the world? Like, you don't know anything. So I just love it when people come in, admit that they're stupid, and seem to think that it matters to me. Like, all you're doing is revealing how dumb you are. Like, that's just a stupid, moronic, stupid, dumb thing to say. And I love that I just said it in a very stupid way. Like, man, true idiots are the best, because they really, really make it very clear how stupid they are right away. He's nothing useful, no arguments, waste of time. Yeah, I'm just waiting for him to kind of hang himself, right? Well, if it's simple, then say it. What it actually means is the group is more important than the individual. Well, which group? Yeah, true fascism is what the men like Mussolini. Yeah, here we go. No consumerism with Western democracy. No communist suppression. Yeah. But that's just like meaningless, dude. Like the group is more important than the individual. Like that's just like some meaningless bullshit. It doesn't fucking mean anything. Larry the Crab, I do answer questions on communism. I try. God bless me. Polish people were not Nazi supporters. We were fighting against them from the first day until the last. So you don't even know the own history of your country. Great. Straight up, dude. Like, yeah, there were absolutely Polish Nazi sympathizers. There was absolutely collaborators. There was absolutely a virulent Polish fascist movement that 100% existed in Poland. Like, to deny it is weird. Like, creepy and weird. This chat's getting real spicy. This Benito Pepsolini guy is fucking hilarious, man. Poles hated, but Benito, you haven't made your point. Like, what? Literally all you've said is the group is more important than the individual. Like, which group? Whose group? Yeah. Then why is Poland today a cesspool of far-right reactionaries? Yeah. Of course there were Polish partisans who fought against the Nazis, but there were also a ton of collaborators. Of course. I'm trying to learn stuff. I don't know what to believe. I don't know what to believe. Sigma's so confused by the people praising Mussolini. There were huge collaborations in Poland, Balkans, Ukraine, basically everywhere in Europe, yeah. The locals more brutal to the Jews than the German Nazis in some cases, yeah. Larry the Crab. So does communism only work in an absolutely perfect world? Because the idea is good, but it's never worked. So it's best to think of communism as a project to be worked towards, right? That it is a societal unifying project. That's... yeah, the group the fascist chooses, right? So just oh my god. So the goal of communism is to create a classless society, right? By moving the society forward through unifying projects. And it's a long-term goal to be worked towards. And the reason why people have never, quote-unquote, achieved it is because it takes a lot of time and there's been a lot of disruptions. And also, I think it's fair to say that it's unreasonable to expect the very first attempt to be successful, right? That would be like shooting the very first rocket into space towards the moon, watching it fail, and then saying we'll never reach the moon, right? That communism is a goal. You can't just flip on the switch. You can't, and it's unreasonable to believe it. So, if you look at the clearest example today is modern day China, which calls itself socialist with Chinese characteristics, and its process towards moving towards communism. And there are many theories about this, and there are many theories about this kind of thing. Yeah, the group the fascist chooses. I love this statement, Benito. The group the fascist chooses? Any group, yeah. So they're going to pick their own, right? And what do they do to the other group, dude? What do they do to the other group? Polish rebels were weak, didn't do massive movements until 1944, where Russia entered into Polish-occupied lands. Oh my god, yeah. Oh, QTYA, I missed your question, dude. Oh, or did you not say it? Yeah, ask away, dude. I'm happy to fix the chat. How we generally don't like Mussolini supporters around here, dude. Like, we're not a fan of fascists for obvious reasons, and I think I am pretty close to my fill. Base, you could take a little bit more, can't you? You could take a little bit more of the Nazi apologencia and the fascist apologencia, huh? Come on, they're just fascists, right? It's not like they did massive harm and like created world war, right? What's the point of fascism? The point of fascism is for a small group of people to dominate the rest of the society. That's the whole thing. No, not ban people we disagree with. Ban fascists. Fascists don't actually have a point, right? That the only reason fascists stand up and talk is to recruit, and yeah, right. Sure, dude. Mussolini's hands were clean. Absolutely. I think I'm good, bud. Funny name, but I think we're okay. Like, fascists should be hung. Mussolini died correctly, and this current fascist, I hope she dies. Fascists are bad people, and you're a bad person. I hope you fucking die. Get the fuck out of here. Like, no. There's no actual defense of fascism. Like, the goal of fascism is to create an elite group of people, right? And dominate the rest of the society. That's the point. Get the fuck out of here. Base, I can't do it. I can't do it, dude. The stream needs to grow somehow. Honest question, John. What's the actual definition of fascism? So I think the one I like to use is the one that Mussolini gave, right? That this guy decided not to use for whatever reason because he's, he loves fascism. The actual definition of fascism that I use is, and it's easy to understand, is that it's when the business class and the state merge. So it's easy to understand, right? So if the church and the state merge, that's a theocracy, right? So if the business class and the state merge, that's fascism, right? So very clear to understand, very straightforward. And you can have a bunch of discussion about like what are the signs of it and like fascism and the study of all these sorts of things, right? But to me, the beating heart of it is when the business class and the state merge and become a similar and become the same entity, basically. Why do I hate fascism? Are we really here? Are we here? Are we really here where we're actually talking about why we hate fascism? Why do we hate fascism, you guys? I mean, they only created World War I and World War II. Well, World War II specifically. Like, which led to, like, the only nuclear bombardment of civilian populations, right? Why do we hate fascists, guys? Like, fascists see themselves as powerful, heroic figures to own and control and dominate others. They see themselves as atop a hierarchy, and that they are at the top of that hierarchy because they are the best, that they are the most competent, and that they control the levers of power as well as the economic power system, and then leverage that against the populace, so that you do all the work and they do nothing whatsoever except dominate you through violence. That's the reason why fascism is wrong and evil, frankly, because fascists want to be at the top of this absolutely dominant hierarchy where they can rule through violence. That's the point. So Nazism is slightly different from fascism because Nazism is explicitly about extermination. That if fascism is about taking control of the society's economic and political levers and then forcing the society to subserviate itself to you, that's what fascism is about. Then Nazism is about taking the groups that the Nazis don't approve of and exterminating them. That fascists don't actually naturally name 10 books. I love this trend, dude. This It's what little kids say when they think that people don't know what they're talking about. Let's see. The Communist Manifesto, Capital. I got the Bible sitting right here. Does Game of Thrones count? Does Game of Thrones count? Lord of the Rings. Let's see. I'm being put on the spot. What's the name of that fucking book? Why is that banging around in there? That's so funny. Disaster Capitalism. Mein Kampf. It's a book. Did I do it? I said books, not toilet paper. Get the fuck out of here, dude. You're just a little kid. Jesus Christ. Oh my god. Okay, I'm reaching my fill. I'm about ready to start purging, cause like Jesus Christ. Now the real little kids are coming in. Name 10 books. Not toilet paper. I said books. Shut up, dude. Like, I'm not here to jerk you off. I'm not a babysitter. Like, for fuck's sake. Like Wealth of Nations. I mean, that's like a volume series. Like the works of Ricard. It's like a volume series. Capital, for God's sakes, is a volume series. Like, these fucking little kids. Like, if you're gonna come in like a little kid, maybe just ask questions, okay? Maybe don't be such a baby man. Have I ever been in a post-socialist country? I mean, I've been in Cuba, right? What is going on, dude? No, I'm good to start. I'm good to start just getting rid of these guys. Name 10 books that I've never read myself. Yeah, and if I think that the book is bad, then it's just toilet paper, right? Oh, the Harry Potter series. There's 7 books right there. For how long was I in Cuba? Long enough. Yeah, I would still consider myself... Well, and you know what, Sigma? I think that you are a very respectful person. I think that that's the difference. Like, you're coming in here, and like, people can disagree with me. Like, people can disagree with me. It's completely fine. I don't care. Like, disagree with me all you want. But there is a way to be respectful. And there is a... get out of here, you fucking Nazi. Get the fuck out of here. I don't give a shit about you. Fucking loser. Fucking... No. I'm purging. I'm purging hard right now. If you come in here and you start fucking stirring up shit and defending Mussolini and defending fascists, I will purge you. Get the fuck out. Get the fuck out. And if you come back, it's because you're a loser. Shut the fuck up. God damn it. I'm at my end with you guys. Like... somebody said something here. KTYAXD, I don't know how to... Katia? Am I religious? I was raised a evangelical Christian, so a Christian fundamentalist. I'm not anymore, obviously. But I call myself a secular theist. That I actually think that the sciences and the secular sciences lead us to the conclusion that there is a God, more or less, is the position. And that we live in a universe that is itself alive. It just has to be the case. And so in that way, I would define myself, I guess, as like religious or spiritual or whatever label you want to put on it, because I perceive that we're part of a larger grand system that is itself alive, or sentient or conscious if you prefer. And I can go deeper into that if you like, but that's more or less my position. Yeah, and Sigma, the best example of communism working, Antarctica, without a doubt. Without a doubt. Yeah. Do you mean the ones that when socialists leave, capitalists turn into hellscapes due to the removal of essential services and marketing of once common amenities and access to resources? Is those the places you're talking about it? Isn't donate and tip the same? If you donate to my Patreon, it goes to me, and if you tip YouTube, it goes, lots of it goes to YouTube. I mean, the thing is, QTYA, I don't know how to say your name. QT? I'll say cutie. I'll say cutie. How about that? Cutie. The thing is that to do research about what I talk about when I talk about like the nature of reality and all of this, I think the best place to start is actually with the quantum mechanicists, because the quantum mechanicists are showing mathematically that we are a singular energy. Like, we are a singular energy, that this is one energy that we all live in, and that we all arise from this singular energy. And so what this means is that we are all the same stuff, right? That we all have an equally valid existence. That everyone's existence goes like this. We're randomly generated in a place that we don't know anything about, without our consent. We have some experiences in that area, and then we all die. And and that's the human experience from start to finish. And the beginning to the end of a person's story is equally valid to everyone. So that means that, like, a mentally handicapped kid born in Zimbabwe, his existence is equally valid to, like, Kobe Bryant. That they're all equally valid in their existences. And which is just fundamentally the truth. Because the energy that creates and sustains us is creating those existences and those realities. And not asking our permission or gives a shit what we think. And when I ask myself about, well, what is the nature of that energy? I find myself asking the very simple question, which isn't does God exist, which I find to be this like deep, ridiculous rabbit hole, but more, is the energy alive? Does the energy have its own sentience or consciousness? And the reason why I'm brought to that question is that if the energy is alive or has its own consciousness, then it's probably a bad idea to drill holes in it, first of all. But also, if it is alive and has its own consciousness and its own awareness, then the individuals that are within it are just as important as any other individual. And that if you actually believe that, then you'll begin treating the people within that energy with the same respect that you would like for yourself. That when you see an elderly person, then you'll treat them as a person, or as a part of this larger energy that is itself alive. Anyway, what do we got? But yes, I think the place to start is with the quantum mechanicists, because they are where we can all agree. We can all agree on something. And I think that's the best place to start a conversation. That if you are an atheist or an agnostic type, and I'd like to say explicitly, I think that that's the most sensible position. Like, really, I think the most sensible position is actually to be an agnostic or a skeptic or an atheist. Because there's a lot of hucksterism that happens in the conversation. So the wisest position to start at is as an agnostic or an atheist. And to constantly be asking for evidence, and to constantly be asking, and to constantly be skeptical. I think that's the best position to be a part of. And so the best place to start is with the quantum mechanicists, because that's something that the atheists and I can agree with. That we can agree with this. This exists and this is real. And then we can move on from there. We are literally watching the capitalist sector in China collapse under the normal boom-bust cycle of capitalism. China used the capitalists up and tossed them aside, now focused to save the workers. Yep, that's exactly what happened. That's a really nice summation, Santora. That when the Chinese let the capitalists in, they fully understood that the capitalist system was going to collapse. You guys know how people in China live out of big cities? I mean, sure, you can look it up on YouTube. You see with your eyes. Like, yeah, and we know that over the last 10, 15 years, they've been pulling those people out of poverty, right? But the Chinese are very aware of the poverty that exists in their own country. They're very aware of it, and they've been trying to alleviate that poverty. They've done enormous projects specifically to do that and have been extremely successful, right? Yeah. Liga DZ, yeah. He has family who lives in rural China. Yeah. You're gonna hit some stone walls here, bud. Like there's people in here who have like genuine go back to playing your Gwent. Yeah. John Lane. Economic calculation problem. Oh no, John Lane's malfunctioning. Is faith anti-intellectual? So, I don't think that my position is faith-based. Like that's something that, like, I call myself a secular theist. I frustrate the shit out of people. I frustrate the shit out of people, and I frustrate the shit out of atheists, and I frustrate the shit out of believers, because I don't consider my position to be faith-based. I consider it to be a materialistic analysis. That if there is a singular energy that we all spring out of, then it must be at least as sentient and aware as we are. By definition, it must be the case. And it's not a leap in logic even a little tiny bit to understand that there is such a thing as a collective consciousness, and that all of our consciousnesses together are a collective energy. The CIA did studies on this that you can look up. And if we agree that there is a collective consciousness of humanity, then we have to, just by definition, agree that the energy that creates us and sustains us is as conscious and is as aware as everything else that exists collectively together. And that the energy is itself aware and conscious. And I think about this a lot. Like it's kind of a crazy thing to even contemplate. And I don't care if you think it's true or not. It doesn't matter to me at all. But I think it's worth the contemplation. It's worth thinking about. Yeah, China's biggest mistake was allowing billionaires and multi-billionaires to exist. I mean, they knew they were doing it, and I think they knew where it was going to go. That's the big difference. People outside of any city live in much harsher and more harmful conditions, such as rural Americans who lack health care, education, similar goods. Yeah. China has fucking gulags. Embarrassing. Just embarrassing wise. Like, stop listening to CIA propaganda. Like, just straight up. Do you mean prisons? Here comes the Uyghur stuff. Here comes the Uyghur stuff. Like, imagine actually believing this stuff. Like, the United States has satellite technology where they can read street signs, but they can't seem to actually find these things. Like, they can't even show a photo of it. China's poverty dropped after they implemented capitalistic reforms, right? Oh, here we go, the classic capitalist apologencia, right? It is technically the truth, right? That they got foreign capital in, they got an industrial sector in because the capitalists gave it to them. But unlike other capitalist nations, that wealth didn't simply accrue at the top. That they used socialist and communist principles to spread that wealth around, to create a more egalitarian society. So this gambit that the capitalists try to do, where they take credit for the success of China, doesn't work. Like, it doesn't actually work that way. Because what would actually happen in China if it was actually just capitalism is that there would be billionaires and everyone would be poor. Because that's what happens. Yeah, no shit, it improves. Yeah. Rural, of course, are living in horrid conditions, predator urban groups, standard fare. Yeah. I mean, we got the classic, like, we haven't explicitly said the words Uyghur genocide, but it's coming. It's coming. Like, dude, if you want to see real fucking gulags, you want to be taking a look at the American prison system. America has 5% of the world's population, but they have 25% of the world's prison population, mostly black. Like, or how about the ICE detention centers that exist along the Mexican-Texan border? Right? Like, stop pointing your finger at other nations you don't know anything about, and start looking at your own nation. Maybe learn something about it. Cutie, you got it, bud. I got 2 more questions. First, what's your opinion on the rise of the far right in Europe? I think the rise in the far right in Europe is the result of the decline in opportunity and living standards across the Western world. That the rise of the far right in Europe is also happening in Canada, and it's also happening in the United States. It's happening across the Western world because the system of capital is extracting as much wealth as it can out of the societies with the idea that it's going to abandon those societies. And it's leaving a bunch of young men angry and frustrated, right? Angry and frustrated. It's leaving a lot of young men angry and frustrated and disaffected and disenfranchised. And it's why fascists like Jordan Peterson can come along and fill their head with Nazi propaganda. Because they don't know what else to do, right? They don't know who to turn to. They don't know where to go. And so they're going to turn to this heroic narrative of I'm the leader of my own fate, and I need to grind set and huddle down and all this kind of stuff and blah 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 blah, which just benefits the power structure, whose strategy is extraction and abandonment at this point. And and so if you wanted to get rid of the far right or the rise of the far right, well, the best thing to do would be to increase the material conditions of the citizenry. Give people access to good jobs. Give people access to simple systems, food and shelter. Let people have access to a basic, decent life. Have your society actually provide a buy-in so that people actually feel like they're part of a unifying project and don't need to fall into this ridiculous mythology that surrounds far-right ideologies like fascism and Nazism. And that's happening across the Western world. It's not just in Europe. It's a feature of capitalism. It's how it works. It's not a bug. It's a feature. And what do I think about Miklos Horthy? Don't know anything about him. Sorry, dude. Nah, they said Uyghur genocide already. Oh yeah, okay. Like we're really deep into the government just takes money from people. People were already rich, but because of these useless taxes, it's just that. Well, I mean, who owns the government is important to remember, Lalo, right? Who owns the government? Like, it's not you. Like, it's not us. Like, we don't own the government. The government is owned by the rich. There's been a merger of the business class and the government. That the state and the business class have merged. That's why whenever there's a crisis, the businesses, the banks, get bailed out, and the rest of us are told to fuck off, right? So that merger that has happened between the business class and the state, which I've already defined as fascism, is essentially complete, and it's a gambit by the ruling class to have you focus exclusively on the government without asking the question, who owns the government? Right? So that they'll constantly have you focusing on demonizing and going after the government and government bureaucrats and government politicians without actually asking who owns these people, and without realizing that there's been a merger, that the entity is not just the government. It is also corporate power and corporate banks that have merged together to create a singular entity. And if that singular entity can get you to focus exclusively on the government and to wither the government, to destroy the government so that they can maintain power, They're happy with that. They're fine with that. That's my warning. I think the giving tree really tells you the definition of fascism. I mean, the Giving Tree, isn't that a children's book where a kid basically just destroys a tree, essentially? In Europe, people in villages live the same as people in cities. I mean, it's not really a fair comparison because Europe has a history of colonialism, and so they have a lot of wealth extraction of like African and South American and Indian nations and states that they can spread out, right? Like China doesn't have that history of colonialism, so they've got to use other strategies. None of the Slavic countries except Russia has ever colonized anyone. Okay. How do we prepare for the widespread famine coming in the next 10 years? Yeah, prepare for it. Plant gardens. Plant gardens. That's the thing to do. USSR with socialism basically colonized us? Probably not. Wealth still flowed into Europe, bud. If you live next to Western Europe, you tend to become richer. Let's just hope shit chills. It won't. It won't. America and Europe do not have a history of chilling out. Like, they've got a long history of internal war. They've got a long history of trying to resolve their crisis of war. They've got a long history of doing that. So I think that we are facing an internal conflict. And there is not really a history of de-escalation. Cutie says, you should look at the Wikipedia page of him. It's always good to learn new things. Absolutely. I think that's absolutely true. Thanks for your answer. I'm not a leftist, but good to hear your answers about these stuff. Well, and Cutie, you've been very respectful. So you might not be a leftist. I hope one day you will be. And I hope I was helpful in your journey. Because I think that what matters more than anything else is that we treat each other with respect and decency while we have these conversations. Unless you're like literally a fascist or a Nazi, then in which case I hope you die. And I'm fine saying that. Rux, do you think USSR's implemented communism is better than the status quo regarding capitalism in countries, the US or Canada? I mean, the USSR implementation of communism, like their journey towards communism, was very successful. Like, you got to remember that they inherited a country from SARS. Like, they were a feudal agrarian economy, and they straight up went from a feudal agrarian economy to being an industrial superpower capable of defeating the Nazis and being the first people into space. Like, I find that Westerners often disregard the successes that occurred in the USSR. That, like, they were the first people into space. They were the first people to actually get an object on the moon. There's something that people don't know. Like, we all focus on America, first man on the moon. Well, the Russians were the first people to actually touch down on the moon. Right? Like, these are major accomplishments. These are major accomplishments that the communists achieved. And I think that the decline of the Soviet Union, there's a lot of factors that go into the decline of the Soviet Union. That I think that they failed to create institutional power, an institutional structure to be able to sustain the communist project. And I also think that post-Stalin, there was a lot of energy towards the idea that we need to unify with the West. That we, the Russians, are in a precarious position being this communist nation. That it's really only the Chinese that are also a communist nation. And you take a look at the wars that happened throughout Southeast Asia, Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, North Korea, and the Russians are very aware that the West is gunning for communism and that they want to staunch the spread of communism. And I think the Russians think to themselves, let's move away from this communist idea and try to integrate ourselves into the Western world, which now we see today as a failure. It didn't work. But I think that they were incentivized in that way to do away with the idea of communism as a survival strategy. It fails ultimately, and we see that today. because I think the Russians misinterpret the character of the West. That they really don't understand that the West is not capable of being rational and is not really capable of diplomacy. Like, and they're seeing that pretty clearly today. John, good to see you. Strong name, John. My name's Jonathan, so we are of kindred spirits. Why do you think communism is the way to go? I think it's as simple as this, dude. I would prefer to see a group of people try to deal with the problems of their society and civilization and fail than live in a society where there was no attempt made whatsoever. And that's really, in my mind, the distinguishing feature. That under capitalism, we are essentially told to go fuck ourselves. That, oh, you've got problems, it's a you problem, fuck you. And under communism, they say, yeah, you've got problems and we're going to work on it. Are we going to succeed every time? No. But we acknowledge that those problems are real and we're going to try to work on it. That to me is the difference. That I would rather live in a society that tried and failed than one that doesn't try at all, which is capitalism. Is having children a foolish or immoral decision with everything in mind? I mean, I think that having a kid right now is not doing the kid a favor. Straight up. Like, welcome to the world, Jimmy. Shit's fucked. Like, there's a big reason why we're in a population decline. Like, we're in a population decline, and the reason we're in this enormous population decline is because people are pretty aware that we are fucked. Like, people are pretty aware that we're fucked, right? Anybody here think that we're not fucked? Anybody here actually think that capitalism is not fucked? Like, it's fucked. We're fucked. And on top of that, it's expensive to have kids, right? So instead of having 2 or 3 kids, we're having 1 if we can. 2 maybe, right? So barely replacement, right? So we're in a population decline because the system of capital has structured itself to exhaust everybody, to make it too expensive to have kids in the first place, and then also has this looming threat of terror constantly over the heads of the citizenry. Like, yeah, I don't have any, I'm not going to have a kid. I'm not getting involved in that. I don't think I'm doing them a favor. Like, stay asleep. It's better there. Planting gardens? Fun fact, Cuba was the only country on the planet that asked their citizens to plant gardens in the wake of the pandemic. You know, just in case. Oh, interesting. USSR stole coal, urine, money, and much other from us. Czechoslovakia. I mean, the history of Czechoslovakia and the Soviet Union, like, you're not wrong, bud. Like, it's a checkered history, for sure. Like, I don't defend, like, literally every decision that the Soviets made. And there was a certain degree of... I do think that a lot of the decisions the Soviets made, they make because of this looming threat of Nazism, right? And that oftentimes there are people who come in here and they'll say things like this, and then if I do any digging on it, I find that it's like, yeah, they like went in there and did a whole bunch of shit because they knew the Nazis were coming. And so they had to like quickly reconfigure and quickly get resources in places because the Nazis were a significant threat. Like, I think it's a bad idea to make these sorts of statements in a vacuum, as if it was the Soviets coming in and just doing things because they wanted the power. Like, yeah, they wanted the power for very obvious reasons. Democracy. I'm just a nationalist. I'm not that much into politics myself. I love to listen to people talk about it. Anyway, I'm going to go soon. Good night. Happy New Year. See you around. Yeah, have a good night, QT. Good luck. USSR founded all these space stuff, satellites, rockets, fire defense system. Yeah, just US had money and the space stuff were more advanced than Soviets. I mean, it wasn't more advanced. Like, the real truth about the whole man on the moon sort of thing is, like, the Soviets didn't really value it that much. that to me is really the truth. Like, the Soviets didn't really, like, is that important? Like, how important is that actually? And the space race that the Americans had, that whole propaganda campaign is just a testament to the success of the propaganda system. That they really whipped up the nation into this idea that we're the greatest because we got a man on the moon. Like, meanwhile, the Soviets are like, yeah, we're the first people into space. Like, we have major advancement. And what, you think the Americans didn't learn something from that? Like, fun fact number 2, planting gardens is what Cuba through the collapse of the USSR. Very nice. When Czechoslovakia World War II heroes came back from fighting. Okay, if you say so, bud. Capitalism is a vital part of all economic systems, including communism. No communist country has ever succeeded without capitalism. John, like, that is literally, that's literally the truth. Like, Lenin said that. Mao said that, right? Like, one of the great theories of communism is a two-stage theory of a period of a period of development with capitalism and with capitalist forces, and then a move into a socialist system. That's part of the theory. Like, you can't move away from capitalism without perfecting that system. You just can't. Like, you can't just, it's not a flip of the switch. You're not just going to flip a switch and be like, no more capitalism, now it's only communism. Like, it just doesn't work that way. It's just not reality. You've got to gradually move towards it, using the productive forces and using the real productive forces that exist during that period of time. Like, you can't do anything else. You literally have to use the capitalist modes of production because they exist and they are there. Like, there's no getting away from that. And so your statement, like, you're making this statement as if it is a condemnation of communism, when literally that's the theory of communism. Like, this is what, like, Lenin said this, Trotsky said this, Stalin said this, Mao said this, Deng said this. We know. You're the one that thinks it's weird, and I don't know why. Like, yeah, the existent system must be used to move away from it. Like, you're essentially just one step away from that kind of Ben Shapiro meme of being like, you criticize capitalism and yet you work under capitalism. Curious. Rex. And Wise, I want to be clear about something with you. I'm not trying to be dismissive. It's simply that I don't know enough about the history of that moment to really comment on it. And it could be very well that you could be right. But singular events in history do not condemn the entire project. And that's the hard truth of it. So even if your claims are absolutely 100% the truth, like, it doesn't make me abandon the project of communism. Like, I'm sorry that shitty things happened in Czechoslovakia. Yeah, Third Reich was an unstoppable machine taking everything they could. The whole world had to help Allies defeat Axis. Could an intense solar flare save humanity? God, wouldn't that be great? Just all of this is happening, and right as it comes to a head, there's just like a solar flare. Literally, like, the angels of God come down. It's just like the book of Revelations. Rax. One of the main principles or values of communism is eventually achieving a classless society. Yes. Every communist country ever existed was an autocracy system and never achieved this principle. Nope. I'm going to stop you right there, dude. Like, no. You can take a look at... I highly suggest the National People's Congress. Like, I really highly suggest everybody give this a read. Right? That you can take a look at this article and see this is the governing system of China. Right? This is the governing system of China. It is a democratically elected system where people are elected in to a structure that has an educational quality to it. That here in the West, we elect people into a position and then they get to write law, which is insane. In China, they're elected into an institution that trains them to be governors and trains them in Marxist principles and socialist principles. Here's the structure of it. The National People's Political... You can see there are many parties within it. Here are the many parties that exist within China. And then this body is responsible for electing the what's the name of this? I'm completely forgetting all of a sudden. But it's responsible for electing the smaller body that's more responsible for... And they do this because there are decisions that require agility. And so they take a certain percentage of this vote goes into this body, right? And this is where Xi Jinping is. And then this body is responsible for electing the specific positions and the specific ministries, if you like. And under no circumstances can this be defined as an autocracy. And you'll find that the Soviet system was somewhat similar to this. That there were guilds and trade organizations that elected higher bodies, and those higher bodies elected other higher bodies, right? And so I highly suggest that people read this. You can learn a lot about China by reading just about the National People's Congress and the elections that they have, the issues that they talk about, and then learning about the 5-year plans that they make. How do you think you will implement this principle? I mean, I think that America will balkanize first. I think that's something that I've really come to grips with. That there isn't going to be a big communist moment in America or Canada under these circumstances, because the imperial core is too strong, the fascism is too deep in American culture, and the thing is going to start collapsing. And so my hope is that people will begin organizing locally in municipalities or states, and that individual cities or individual municipalities and small scale things will begin moving towards these principles for themselves. But the idea that Canada or America will suddenly become communist, that's not realistic. That there's going to be a period of balkanization first. And that's what's going to occur. Nothing can survive alone. There's always the need to help to achieve what you need. That's pretty basic, isn't it, Lalo? Like, it seems pretty obvious. Orphan Eater, good start, dude. What a name. What a name. It's very specific. It's very specific. But surely the elites will always be in power. It's not like they go, guys, I guess that's it, and lay down their weapons and embrace communism. Yeah, exactly. And this is a big reason why I say that we're going to experience a period of balkanization first. That the systems that exist throughout the United States and Canada were created by monarchs and slaveholders, right? They weren't created by egalitarian lovers of democracy and freedom. They were created by slaveholders and monarchs in order to maintain the power of the monarchy and in order to maintain the power of the capitalist wealth holders. That's the point of our systems. And the internal contradictions that exist within capitalism are going to tear it all apart. And eventually people across America will simply seek secession. And moreover, it won't just be the poor people seeking to alleviate the tyranny of the federal government, but it'll also be billionaires. Because the response of the federal government under a period of duress will be an attempt to raise taxes on the wealthy, and they will And so they will fund secession movements themselves with the help of the underclass, right? And so you'll see a balkanization of the United States and Canada over time. Why do you think communism is better than capitalism? I've said it earlier, right? I'd rather live in a country that was attempting to solve the problems of the nation through unifying projects and failing than live in one that wasn't trying at all and just gaslighting its citizens the way that capitalism does. Yeah, you can't develop a better system in a vacuum. You need a system to build upon. Yeah, that's the evolution. Could we have food, water, shelter communism and then let everybody fight for the rest? I mean, what led me towards communism was that I was just constantly saying, why don't we have access to food and shelter? Like, why isn't food and shelter just baked into the system? And people will be like, that's commie talk. And I was just like, okay. So eventually I started reading communists and I was like, oh, these guys are right. France, I'm from China. Source, trust me, bro. Lived there for 12 years since childhood. It's hell on earth. The Congress is a good idea on paper. However, it's so corrupted. Anyone disagrees with the chairman, they will be purged. Source, trust me, bro. Are you actually Chinese or are you a foreigner who lived in China? And you literally have it backwards. There were corruption and the purging was getting rid of the corrupted elements. Yeah, and I mean, we don't know anything about you, dude. Like, are you a capitalist? Are you just complaining that you can't be a capitalist in China? Is that the complaint? Because I'm fine with that. Monarchs were anti-capitalist. The history of the monarchy and the capitalists is a bit more complex than that, I think. That many monarchs simply make the transition to becoming capitalists themselves. And the monarchs weren't necessarily anti-capitalist. And when monarchs were anti-capitalist, it was because they understood that the capitalists were gaining more power than the monarchies themselves. And it's different wherever you go. So, like, in France, there was, like, literally the French Revolution, where people are just being, like, beheaded, right? Like, that's pretty... I would be pretty anti-capitalist if that was the shit that was happening. But then I think the clearest example of a fairly smooth transition would be the British throne. Right? That the British throne essentially has made a transition into being a capitalist entity unto itself. Right? So I wouldn't say that the monarchs are anti-capitalist, but I wouldn't say they're pro-capitalist either. I think many of them are just doing what they need to do to maintain their own prestige and power. So they're adapting. Happy New Year to you, cutie. I hope to see you again, bud. You are the first communist you see that answers like an adult. Thank you, sir. That's the goal. That's the goal. That's what I'm trying to do. Because I think there's a lot of misinformation out there, and I think that we need to at least be able to have these conversations. France, okay, Han Chinese, very nice. Chinese name, don't necessarily disagree, just pointing out some stuff I'd like to share. The unfortunate downsides of communism and corruption. I mean, France, I think if you're living in China, there's always that grass is always greener thing that happens, right? And I think that there's no such thing as no corruption, right? But to say that the corruption is worse in China than it is in America is flatly false. Like, flatly false. Like, America has legalized corruption. There is a system of corruption. It's the super PAC system. You literally buy politicians. That's literally how it works. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that the the National People's Congress is without corruption. Obviously. Like, I don't think it's possible. Right? But at least the Chinese system is aware of corruption and is trying to do something about it. Right? It's like what I've said many times already. I would rather live in a society that was trying to solve its problems and failing than live in a society that didn't give a shit. And that, to me, is the key difference between communism and capitalism. That capitalists do not give a fuck about the problems of the nation. 0% giving a shit. They don't care. It's a you problem. Deal with it yourself, you weak, pathetic loser. That's capitalism. Well, I don't want to live in that society, and I don't want to live with those people. I want to live in a society that says, we as a people have problems. We should work on those problems, even if we fail. Do you think we'll see another Guy Fawkes in our time? Yeah. We're already seeing that. Like, you just don't know about them. That's all. Like, what was her name? Resnick. Pipeline bombing? Was it a bombing? No. Come on, what was her name? Shoot. Resnick, I think it was. Nice. Pipeline destruction. Yeah, here it is. Activist Jessica, Iowa climate activist sentenced to 8 years in federal prison for Dakota Access Pipeline sabotage. One of 2 central Iowa women responsible for millions of dollars in damage to the Dakota Access Pipeline was sentenced to federal court Wednesday to 8 years in prison. Climate activist Jessica Resnick, 39, and Ruby Montoya were indicted on 9 federal charges, including charges for damaging an energy facility, use of fire in the commission of a felony, and malicious use of fire. These people are heroes. I have no problem saying that. These people are heroes. They're doing what must be done. That's a funny. Yeah. China's communism been in debate. There's been a lot of capitalist elements. You should know this. I live in Chongqing, one of the best cities in China. I'm grateful for the fact that I'm here today. Many of my relatives and family members lived through the Japanese imperial era, the Great Leap Forward, the economic boom. But I don't know why you're shitting on it then. Like, for real. Like, if I lived through the changes that occurred in the society, like, we're living, like, here in the West, we're living through a period of deep stagnation and decline. And it's become very apparent that I grew up during a period of deindustrialization where literally people could walk into factories with a grade 9 education and get a job that gave them money to buy a house, have kids, a wife, all that kind of shit. And they could literally just, like, with nothing, do that. To where we are now, where those jobs are gone. Where to get any job whatsoever means that you have to have, like, a 4-year degree. Right? Like, I just had a conversation with my dad where he was an auto mechanic his whole life. And he's also a fairly astute musician. And he ended up with a mandolin that was in bad repair. And he thought to himself, oh, wait a minute, I was taking apart engines and tractors and things like this. I know how to take apart things and put them back together. So he watched some YouTube videos and repaired up this mandolin. And then he found himself thinking, like, well, I repaired up the mandolin. It was successful completely. Well, why don't I go around the neighborhood and see if anybody needs any other instruments repaired? He's tuning pianos, and he's fixing up guitars, and he's doing all this kind of stuff. And so then he thought to himself, well, why don't I just put out an ad in the paper, and maybe I'll make a little coin doing this, and it won't be a problem, and all that kind of stuff. Turns out, if you don't have a degree from an accredited institution, you can't sell that service, even if you're good at it. Like, even if it's what you do. I think that's nuts. Like, I think that's nuts. Like, maybe he should have to go to a place and show that he's capable of doing it. But a 4-year degree? Get the fuck right out of here. Yeah, I'm just warning you from one Chinese to another. What you call hell on earth means something very different to Westerners. I mean, yeah, I consider hell on earth to be like a city of rubble. That's hell on earth. Like, all right, guys. We've reached the end. We're well over time. God bless each and every one of you for being here. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, hit all the bells, hit all the whistles. Let people know I exist. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Oddity. I appreciate it every time. Always remember, you're a quantum being walking around in quantum energy. These billionaires are spending hundreds of billions of dollars in the hopes you'll never realize it. You'll just stay the good little commodity they need you to be. Rebel. Revolt. Repent. Good luck. We're going to need it.